We now bring you another part of the badass chubby guy. If you've already watched part 1, we'll leave the starting time for part 2 below. So let's go. The story here is about the chubby badass, and this world here is quite different from ours. The story already starts with our protagonist watching a video of a woman mocking men. The guy here doesn't understand anything and gets really confused since he had just been reborn in the body of a pretty chubby guy. He received the memories of the former owner of this body, and understood that this world is actually a feminist world. Guys here, men are highly valued, while women are all simps for the guys. Actually, it's not feminist, right? Because here they value men, so it's really different from feminism. Here basically a guy can get any girl he wants, he just has to hit on her. However, our hero was born in the body of a pretty ugly kid, and his former self was an extremely powerful emperor. In his other life he was badass. He ends up getting frustrated because in the old world men were alpha males, and here women do the hard work. In other words, men in this world are pretty spoiled guys. And since he had gained a body without spiritual energy, he would have to train a lot to regain his powers. He was sent to this world because he lost a battle against the venerable demon, who was the queen of beasts. He remembers that she was also defeated, so the battle was basically a draw, and he wonders if she also ended up in this world. Just like him, he felt that his energy was practically zeroed out. The name of the owner of this body was Lungman. The chubby kid was still in high school. He also remembers that this kid lived with his uncles, so he puts on his uniform and goes downstairs to have breakfast. He lived with these lazy uncles because his parents had been killed in a car accident, and his grandmother with whom he lived had Alzheimer's and had to be hospitalized. That's why the uncles who lived in a city far away found a way to come to his house with the excuse of taking care of the boy. But actually they just wanted the kid's inheritance. Because he had this dorky appearance, everyone disrespected him. Are you underscore or something? However, now this kid was no longer a fool, because he was the emperor, and he was a pretty badass guy. Check out how he's going to treat the people who used to humiliate him. The poor boy was constantly put down by his uncles, cousins, and schoolmates. But now our badass hero is going to take revenge on everyone. As soon as he arrives in the kitchen, his uncles and cousin are already mocking him. They call the boy fat and say he's late. Since he was engaged to a girl, he had to leave earlier to pick up Kala. Lungman remembers through the memories of this boy that his grandmother, before being hospitalized, had arranged a marriage agreement with the parents of a girl named Yara. However, when this girl found out she had a marriage agreement with this boy, she started cursing our protagonist, saying she would never marry a chubby guy like him. The boy was so sad that he ran off and accidentally threw himself in front of a truck, and that's how the boy died. After being hit, the emperor's energy took over Lungman's body, and in this way our protagonist ended up in this world. The boy's aunt keeps belittling our hero, and he in a pretty intimidating way tells this annoying woman to stop bothering him. The aunt is left dumbfounded and realizes that the boy is quite different. Oh, but what a stuck-up woman and how loudly she talks. He no longer seems to be that fool they used to belittle. As soon as the food is served, his cousin starts mocking him, saying he's fat and eats a lot. However, our hero doesn't pay attention and ignores the boy. Since they were quite rich, they go to school with the driver, and his cousin keeps telling our hero to wait in the car because he doesn't want to be seen with him. Lungman's cousin was even a bit popular and cared a lot about appearances. Our hero gives him a look of disdain, which ends up causing some fear. Our hero's chubby body gets out of the car and finds a pretty modern school, something he hadn't seen in his world. He realizes that the men here are pretty effeminate, so to speak, which ends up making our hero even more badass since he is the only true alpha male. He is delighted because at least the girls here seem to be normal. At that moment he sees two girls complimenting his cousin's legs, and he realizes that in this world it's the women who flirt with men. He wanted to train to recover his powers in order to defeat the venerable demon, because he was almost sure she also ended up in this world. If you're enjoying this story, go ahead and leave your like and a comment. It doesn't cost anything and it will help YouTube understand that our video is relevant and will recommend it to more people. He arrives in the classroom and realizes that Yara is there, his fiancée. Her classmates keep mocking the girl because she's engaged to a pretty chubby guy, and that's why she hates him so much. Our protagonist realizes that this girl is unbearable, as she keeps making ugly faces at him all the time. However, unlike the old Lungman, our protagonist doesn't care about the girl and sits at his desk. The only true friend he had was the little redhead named Julia. She is quite nerdy and keeps talking about anime and video games all the time. However, our emperor needs to keep recovering his memory to know what she's talking about, since in his old world those things didn't exist. She wanted to know if he was still interested in Yara and said that if he lost weight, maybe he would be a little less ugly and might be able to marry her. However, our hero didn't care at all about what she was saying and tells her to just say what she's planning. Julia says she's not plotting anything, and he insists, saying that she's not that kind and probably wants something from him. She actually wanted to play a game with our hero, and if he accepted, she would introduce a girl even prettier than Iara. She proposed this because generally in this world girls play video games and men who are good at games are highly valued. She says she's organizing a trip to a very high mountain, and this trip will happen during summer vacation. And if he agrees to play video games with her, she will put his name on the list. He recognizes the name of this mountain and realizes it has a lot of spiritual energy, which would be very beneficial for his cultivation training. With that, he ends up accepting and gives a warning, saying he's not very good at video games. The little redhead says it was to be expected that he wouldn't do very well, since he is a man and boys aren't very good at games. She also says she'll take him to the computers after class. As soon as classes end, they go to the computer room. She says she's addicted to a game and wants him to play with her since she needs to level up her character. He remembers he had an account in this game, and after logging in he realizes that the game's theme is very similar to the world of cultivators he belonged to. His nickname was Momo Baby, not a very masculine nickname, and that bothers our hero a little. The little redhead says that there's a player who is her classmate at school, who is one of the best in the world, and she keeps showing up just to mess up her mission. Julia asks our hero for help to defeat a monster, and the girls who keep joining the game keep flirting with him since men in this world are highly valued. Completely the opposite of our world, guys. If he asked for skins, the girls would send them immediately. And I bet most of you would like the world to be like this, with several gamer girls spending all the money possible on you. That would be the dream world. Our hero starts using his cultivation knowledge to understand how the game works. He realizes that the girls there couldn't get past the dungeon boss. He decides he will help them. The little redhead was already cursing, saying the enemy was too strong. And on the other side of the city, in a LAN house, there was Alice. That girl who was one of the best in the world, and she kept messing up the little redhead's gameplay. She had found Momo Baby and said she was going to hunt him down since he had a decent item. Our protagonist was running away from her. And at that moment he uses a small fraction of his cultivation power and notices the weak point of that girl in the game. So he manages to defend himself and lands a precise attack. That girl was one of the best in the world, and she had been defeated by a man, and on top of that a newbie. That was very humiliating, and she gets outraged. The little redhead starts celebrating, saying it's amazing that he managed to defeat a woman. However, our hero was very tired and keeps saying that this chubby kid's body is trash, because he only used a little cultivation and already made the whole body exhausted. You'll see that from now on the girls will keep bothering him just because he's good at video games. By the way, she didn't accept losing to our hero. And after restarting her character, she tries to hunt him again. However, since the emperor wasn't very patient, he quickly finished her off again. The chubby boy was very good at video games, and the girl starts throwing a tantrum there at the LAN house. Her friend even tries to say that he must be using some kind of hack since it wouldn't be normal for a man to play that well. With that, Alice grabs her friend's shirt and tells her to immediately find out who this Momo Baby is, because she needs to see if he's really good or if he's using some kind of illegal program. She finds out that Momo Baby is the little redhead's partner, and with that they call Julia to set up a match with. Julia gets all happy, saying that's incredible because she got a date with Alice, the most popular girl in school and also the best player in the world. However, Lumen didn't want to play that anymore since it was basically a waste of time for him, so he leaves. The little redhead, however, gets very excited. At home, our protagonist complains that this body is very weak and that it would take a lot of work for him to reach the cultivation level he had before. The next day he goes to school with his cousin, who keeps bothering him. However, our hero is already pretty pissed and tells his cousin to shut up, making the kid throw a tantrum. The little redhead now starts sucking up to our hero just because he's good at video games. She says that the player from yesterday, Alice, studies at the same school as them. Since he was good at games, he had a chance to marry her. However, our hero didn't want that kind of meeting and looks at her with an expression of hatred. The girl tells him not to worry because Alice wouldn't hit him if he won the match. Oh wow, I'm shaking with fear. Look how I'm shaking with fear. However, our hero said he didn't care about that. At that moment, Ira appears, slamming her hand on the desk. She is that girl who had a marriage contract with our protagonist, and since she was bullied because of it, she asked him not to go around telling people they were engaged. Our hero says nothing, and only his little redhead friend tries to protect him, telling Ira to be a little more polite. Ira asks if Julia likes him since she keeps protecting this fat whale. In response, our badass hero says that there's no possibility of him marrying someone as ugly as her, and because of that, she can rest assured since he has no interest at all in that He even asks her to get away from him. The guy was a true Sigma badass. The girl tries to play it off, saying he's only saying that because she rejected him the first time. Ira keeps bothering our protagonist. And since men in this world are pretty soft, the classmates keep saying that Lumen is very brave. If it were them, they would have cried a long time ago since they couldn't handle such humiliation. At that moment, the beautiful Alice arrives in the classroom, catching everyone's attention. Wherever she goes, the boys are enchanted by this girl. She points her finger at our hero, ordering him to follow her. Iura thinks Alice is talking to her, but actually she was talking to Momo Baby. He doesn't accept receiving orders from insolent humans. The guy was prouder than Vegeta and said he wasn't going to move from there. However, those soft guys keep saying that our protagonist is amazing because the most beautiful girl in school is Julia keeps begging Lumen to go play with her. What she really wanted was to get closer to Alice since she was a popular girl and she would use our hero to become popular too. He knew his friend was just using him and says he will only go there so they will stop bothering him. When he leaves the classroom, Alice is in the hallway and suspected that Momo Baby wasn't a man but a woman since he played so well. When she sees it's this chubby boy, she gets a little surprised and says she won't hit him for having defeated her in yesterday's. Our hero here is pretty shameless and keeps checking out her legs, even making some comments in his mind. He found this little blonde a bit attractive and even started getting a little interested. What she actually wanted was a one-on-one duel. The girl didn't accept losing to a man, and since he just wanted peace, he said he won by pure luck and that actually is much better than him. The girl finds this absurd since in this world women usually give orders to men, so she wouldn't accept him saying no. In that aspect, this world is quite similar to ours, where usually the one in charge is the woman because men prefer peace over winning an argument by being. Alice's friend keeps saying that this boy must be in love with her and that's why he refused to duel in the since ugly men like him don't have much confidence when they're near a pretty girl. Those soft boys keep asking our hero what he said to Alice, but he didn't want to waste his time with these childish things from mortal human beings. His real interest was to recover his cultivation power and return to his world. Julia keeps saying that Alice just wants to mess with him, and that if he happens to win he will be able to do whatever he wants with that girl. That's exactly what you're thinking. That's exactly what she was saying. No matter what she said, Lumen didn't want to play with that stuck-up girl. So Julia says that if he happens to accept playing that match, she will take him to the highest mountain. He says he will only accept if she doesn't take anyone else there to get in the way. With that, Julia thinks he's flirting with her, and by suggesting that no one else goes, she imagines he wants to be alone with her. In response, Julia says that she's a terrible person, and because of that, he shouldn't feel attracted. Actually, Julia was just protecting herself because she didn't want an ugly fat guy to fall in love with her. And in the end, he decides that he will think about this duel. If you're thinking that he's going to stay with this ugly body for a long time, being disrespected by everyone, you're very wrong. So follow the story here to see how he will take revenge on these people who keep humiliating him. I can only say one thing: the Emperor is too badass, so stay tuned. In the cafeteria, no one wants to sit near. And when leaving, he keeps thinking about how the venerable demon might be recovering her, since demons need to drain the life of other living beings, and he hadn't seen any reports of anything. At that moment, a very beautiful girl walks in the same hallway as him. The girl is so beautiful that everyone is amazed by her, and her black hair reflects the sunlight. She was the venerable demon, and had been reborn in the body of a girl named Meiko. The girl knew that the Emperor had also been reborn in this world, and that she just needed to become stronger than him, and thus defeat him as soon as possible. However, without her cultivation powers, she also couldn't detect the Emperor. But to her happiness, she was born in the body of a reasonably strong girl. At the same time that back in the past, she fought with the Emperor. She felt that he was the only one with whom she could share her feelings, because the world they lived in back then was very troubled. After having trained a lot and managing to defeat the Emperor, she also ended up being defeated by him, and she ended up in this world together with our hero. It seemed that they were destined to be together. Guys, she was sure he came to this world because he was also incredibly powerful, just like her. Even after training a lot and accomplishing incredible feats, she never got her father's approval. That's because in their world, women had no value at all. She did evil things just to get revenge on the men who mistreated her. Actually, she wasn't that bad. She was just taking revenge on some people. However, in this world, men were at a disadvantage because they had less physical strength than women, and that's why they stood out more. She was very beautiful and could do whatever she wanted. And in this world, men were like fools chasing after her since she caught everyone's attention. Loan starts walking right behind Meiko, and she thinks she's being followed because this chubby guy there found her pretty. When she turns around, they meet. However, since both were without cultivation power, they don't recognize each other. She tells him to stop following her because she would never be with someone as ugly as him. However, our badass protagonist just ignores this stuck-up girl, saying that she's a nuisance. This makes her die of embarrassment, and her face turns all red. With that, she says it's better to recover her strength and leave this world as quickly as possible because even in another dimension, she continued to be mistreated by men. Yeah guys, things aren't easy for the venerable demon. I confess to you that I felt a bit sorry for her. To try to comfort herself a little, she says that he was probably falling in love with her and said that just because he was embarrassed. At that moment he notices that the girl keeps following him, and our protagonist just wanted to have lunch on the rooftop, peacefully. Maiko thinks he's going up to the top of the building to jump off since he had been rejected by her, but she thinks that's silly and doesn't give it much importance. However, the venerable demon was a very good girl, and she wouldn't be able to live with the thought that someone died because of her, so she runs back there. When she arrives on the rooftop, she is shocked by that scene. She sees the chubby boy really about to jump off. She extends her hand and tries to use an immobilization spell, but since she was without her powers, nothing worked. And with that, the emperor was about to jump. Actually, he just wanted to feel a breeze of fresh air. And at that moment he feels someone holding his belly. When trying to pull him off the ledge, he ends up falling on top of the girl. Since he weighed more than 100 kilograms, he ended up fracturing the girl, crushing her on the ground. He asks what the hell she was doing. In response, the girl says she was saving his life since he was going to jump from a very high place. He realizes that the girl is very beautiful and was only doing this to save him. And for a reason he doesn't understand, he feels a strange connection with her. Maiko starts cursing our protagonist, saying that he crushed her. With that, our hero offers to help her get up. He reveals that he didn't intend to jump, he just wanted to get some fresh air. And besides, he wasn't interested in her at all. This makes the girl die of embarrassment, slapping his hand and refusing his help. He realizes that the girl is not very friendly and says that he won't help her because he found it absurd that someone would refuse the emperor's help. Back in the classroom, Julia asks what he was doing since she had been looking for him all this time. She was mad because Alice was demanding that match Julia had promised. The girl seemed like our hero's manager. In response, Lewin tells her to deal with it since she was the one interested in. Julia says that after class she will take him to play that match with Alice and that he just needs to let her win, so she will leave him alone. However, it would be way too humiliating for the emperor to lose to a human girl like that, and he reveals that he will not under any circumstances let someone defeat him. Julia says that Alice is from a very rich family and that it would be better not to make her angry. Our hero says that this is Julia's problem since she was the one who caused all this mess, and therefore the little redhead should be the one to solve it. Julia just wanted to be popular, but since this problem was growing, she tells our hero that he can ask her for anything, even go out with him, if that would make him let Alice win. Since he refused, Julia says that now it's all over. As soon as class ends, he says he will go there to play with Alice, and because of that, Julia cannot forget about that trip to the mountain. As he leaves, he remembers that pretty black-haired girl might still be up there on the rooftop because she didn't accept his help. And our protagonist decides that it's better to go there to see how she is because if he didn't help, he imagined he would be arrested. He runs off to save the girl. Poor Maiko was all smashed on the ground. She hadn't even been able to stand up and on top of that was feeling very cold because of the cold wind blowing up on the roof. However, it would be very humiliating to ask for help from mere humans, so she stays there silent without asking for help. She even starts to find that chubby boy a little cute since he tried to help her. And at that moment, our protagonist shows up like a hero to save the little girl. In defense, she keeps asking what he wants. Our protagonist realizes she was feeling really cold, so like a true gentleman, he takes off his jacket and puts it over her so she can feel warm. Of course, the girl would complain, but our hero doesn't care and says he's going to call an ambulance so she can be rescued. In a rather cute way, she says she doesn't want this jacket, and he replies that she can return it as soon as the ambulance arrives. So he leaves like a true hero, and the girl stays there, waiting for help to arrive. As soon as the paramedics arrive at the scene, the girl puts her hand on her face, feeling really embarrassed since she was attracting everyone's attention. That was very humiliating for the Queen of Demons. She was being rescued by mere mortals and swears she will get revenge on our protagonist Lewin. As soon as he gets home, that annoying cousin of his keeps bothering him, saying that he's up to something since Alice, who is the most popular girl at school, went to his class. Lewin says he didn't do anything, but his cousin keeps insisting, saying he's involved in something really dangerous since Alice's family is very influential and doesn't mess with very honest stuff, if you know what I mean. That annoying cousin was already getting nervous because he was feeling jealous of our hero. So he starts throwing a tantrum, saying he's going to kick Lewin out of the house. But actually, this house belonged to our hero. And he tells the boy that if he doesn't stop bothering him, he himself will kick him out. The spoiled boy gets ready to slap our protagonist, but Lewin doesn't let him and ends up grabbing his hand. Just by twisting it a little, the boy already starts screaming in pain, calling his father to come help him. The boy runs off and his father ends up arriving, starting to yell at our protagonist. When he threatens to slap him in the face, our protagonist does the same thing, grabs this shameless guy's hand. Since women in this world were stronger than men, he keeps saying he's going to call his wife. And our hero tells them to stop picking on him. As soon as they start yelling for the head of the house to come solve these problems from upstairs in the room, she already starts asking them to be quiet. After coming downstairs, she asks what's going on. And our hero explains that his cousin was picking on him, saying he was causing trouble at school, but that was completely a lie. The woman demands that the nephew apologize to her son and her husband. But our hero says he won't apologize for anything because they are the ones who are wrong. And if they are bothered, they can leave his house. Yeah guys, our protagonist was becoming a true Sigma B. You'll see that the boy will become even more badass, so stay tuned. She says she won't give him any money and that he's going to struggle there without cash during the holidays. And our hero replies that he doesn't need that. But when he gets to his room, he realizes he really doesn't have any money and will need to do some things to get some cash. He even thinks about selling some of his clothes on the internet since this world was reversed, and probably the girls would pay a pretty high price for his honor. So he goes to a website and puts his shorts up for sale. And as incredible as it seems, several bids appear from some shameless women trying to buy the shorts. They even ask if it's used and if it smells like sweat. Yeah guys, what a strange world. This even makes Lewin fall backward in shock. He didn't imagine that women would be so weird like that. But he ends up deciding not to go down these bizarre paths to get money. He decides to try more conventional methods. After that, he starts training to lose some weight since his body was really weak and he couldn't even use a small fraction of his cultivation. So he needed to get a little stronger. However, just 2 minutes pass and he's already exhausted, showing that his body is really weak. Julia ends up calling, asking why he didn't reply to her messages. She wanted to talk about the visit to that really high mountain which was going to happen in ifs. She told Lewin that the two of them wouldn't be able to travel alone since several students from the school signed up for the. She even says she thinks it's better if he doesn't go because that annoying cousin of his also signed up and might start a huge fight. But our hero was the emperor and wasn't afraid of any fight. He says he's definitely going on this trip and that the bus cannot be late. The next day, our protagonist wakes up really early to get ready for them, and the annoying cousin already starts picking on him as always. The bus was outside honking for them to leave, and that girl who had a marriage contract with our protagonist was there calling for his cousin since she was kind of in. That stuck-up boy keeps telling them to get on quickly because he doesn't want his cousin to go on the trip with them. So he tells the girl to hide. He reveals that he got beaten up by his cousin the night before, and the girl already gets furious, saying she won't let anyone hit her. The little redhead appears and says someone's coming on this trip. She was talking about Lewin. No one there seems to like him very much since they keep complaining. An annoying girl even says that if he gets on the bus, she's going to get. Julia realizes that these classmates are really. At that moment, he gets on the bus and people start putting their arms in front to keep him from sitting next to. Yara says he's not welcome there since he hit her little prince. At that moment, Julia shows up to help our protagonist and tells everyone to calm down because he's also a student at the school and deserves to be on this trip. She tells him to sit in the front seats because the view of the landscape would be better and the place was beautiful, so he would enjoy. They continue on the trip, but a few seconds pass and they hear a deafening motorcycle. Who was coming was that girl obsessed with our hero, Alice. She takes off her helmet, showing she's very pretty, and everyone is amazed by her beauty. She was fixated on Lewin because he was a great player and she couldn't accept that he was better than her. So she kept following him everywhere, asking if he wanted to play a match. Julia realizes she put her friend in trouble since now this girl kept chasing the poor guy. She gets on the bus and Julia goes to talk to her, asking her to leave. She responds that she came to get that fat guy and that she only saw him through the bus window because. Yeah guys, seems like our protagonist doesn't get a second of. Everyone mocks him because she said that the students start laughing, making fun of him. There she reveals that if he plays one more match with her, she will make Yara marry him. She was so rich that she thought she could make everyone kneel before her. But our hero doesn't give in so easily. He asks if in case he plays with her, she will stop bothering him. She gets mad at the way he said that. She starts insisting more and our protagonist sees a pendant with a strange aura. That pendant had high spiritual power. At that moment he starts to doubt whether this girl was an ordinary person. Since the venerable demon was in this world, any object with spiritual energy could be a clue to find her. That's why he ends up accepting to play with this girl since she promised to give him anything. His goal was to play with her, ask for something in return, and then climb that mountain to gain more spiritual power and use his cultivation. Julia tries to calm things down since it seemed like a big fight was about to start in front of the bus. Everyone was rooting for the blonde to beat up our protagonist. She finally sits next to him and they get ready to start the match. She asks if he has the game downloaded on his phone, and our protagonist says he already came prepared. I don't know about you, but I think our protagonist is missing several opportunities. The girls are all crazy about him and he does nothing. The match between them finally starts, and since our hero is pretty badass, he ends up defeating her in a matter of seconds. She doesn't understand why she lost so quickly. There she wonders what kind of strategy he was using and how he managed to discover her weakness so fast. In a very sarcastic way he says he's a god of games, but he was referring to being a god emperor, even though no one knew. She realizes he was a genius and much more skilled than her. Our protagonist just wanted to get the reward. She keeps asking what kind of thing he was. I know you there, nerd taverner. Would ask for something pretty daring. but our protagonist only asked for $10,000. Money beats everything, guys. Alice replies that he could have asked for something much more daring, but he said that just the $1000 was good. He immediately sends the QR code for her to make the pics, and with no choice she ends up transferring the money. Comment down below what you would ask from this cute waifuzina. She didn't like it much but transferred the money, and it was something he really needed since had cut off his. She decided she would accompany them to the mountain up. However, she didn't want to sit next to our hero because he took up too much space. She ends up asking in a very polite way in quotes for Yara to switch seats. The girl didn't like that at all but ended up giving in since Alice is from a very rich and powerful family. Hours later they arrive at this mountain. At the top there was a very dense concentration of spiritual. Our hero wanted to train there and activate his cultivation. However, as I mentioned before, the guys in this world were pretty soft and couldn't climb all the way up there, saying it would. Julia, as the leader of the trip, goes ahead of everyone. Half an hour later they were all dead tired. Our hero, as he was overweight, ends up suffering a bit. The girls even keep insisting that the boys let them carry them, and no one paid much attention to Luan since he was chubby and everyone always looked down on him. The only one who gave him a little attention was Julia, but she didn't want to show too much concern because she thought they would think she liked him. Some girls were already reaching the top, but our protagonist was almost dying halfway through the climb. Julia offers help, saying she can carry his backpack, but he refuses, saying he will reach the top alone. Several men were already coming back, saying they couldn't make it to the top. But our protagonist keeps going strong until the end. The view from the top was truly enchanting, and the one who had arrived there first was precisely that stuck-up blonde. She is outraged that he managed to reach the top. She thought he wouldn't even make it halfway. Luan feels the difference in spiritual pressure between down below and the top of the mountain. When he takes a deep breath, he feels his lungs fill with energy. From now on, he would be able to reach a reasonably high cultivation and detect the venerable demon. As he begins to concentrate energy in his hands, that girl touches his shoulder, interrupting his meditation. Besides being very good at games, he had a very different personality from the other boy. That caught the blonde's attention. "Fatty, I got here first, so you can get out of here as fast as possible." "Well, I can't walk alone. If you want me to leave, then you must carry me on your back." Since she wouldn't be able to carry him back, she ends up handing over the leftover snack and says she's leaving first because the view from up here wasn't that great anyway. Since he was in an overweight body, he immediately devours the sandwich because he couldn't hold his hunger. With that, our hero decides he will train a little up there to use his cultivation art. Later, he calls Yulia and tells her he will spend the entire vacation on the mountain. She doesn't believe he's going to stay 2 months in this little town. He says he's going to use this time to train his body. She doesn't take it very seriously, but ends up leaving him there and goes back to their city. So, he goes to a hotel and uses all the money, the raw $10,000 he won, to pay for the stay. Every morning he would climb to the top of the mountain to train, since there was a lot of energy up. He does this for 2 months and also trains with weights at the gym. The vacation ends, and Julia returns to the little town to pick up our protagonist. He tells her the building and the room number so she can pick him up. When she arrives, she comes face to face with a six-pack on a guy. That student who was mediocre and ignored by everyone had turned into a really handsome guy, guys. Julia can't even believe that this guy is our hero, and even apologizes, thinking she entered the wrong room. As soon as she saw the handsome version of our hero, she got all embarrassed and even started to create a fanfic in her head where she built a family with him. But he says he's Luan, the school friend. She doesn't believe he turned into that charming guy. She even says this must be a prank, but he explains that he only lost weight and nothing else. She notices that his arms are amazing, his legs longer, and his shoulders firmer. Aside from all these features that changed a lot, the personality and voice are still the same as Luan's. Julia even slaps her own face to see if she's not dreaming, and starts to fall all in love. She says that she always treated him well and therefore she has a chance to be with him. Yeah guys, I told you all the women in this world are simps. Even Julia's driver keeps hitting on our hero. From now on he will be pampered by all the girls and they will regret treating him badly. Now finally, he's going to get back at all of them. Julia says that now that he's slim and strong, the girls will be all over him. But he shouldn't pay attention to them because they don't deserve him. In reality, Julia just wanted to make sure Luan would be all hers. But our badass protagonist tells her to shut up and stop talking nonsense. Even so, she doesn't stop fantasizing in her head, her marrying him and having a beautiful family. I have the highest kindness and closeness score with Luan compared to the other girls. That means I have a great chance of being with him. She was basically deluded, thinking she would get with our protagonist. But the only thing he really wanted was to increase his cultivation power and defeat the venerable demon. She ends up dropping him off at home and says she's excited to see him at school tomorrow. As soon as he gets home, he already knows his annoying uncles will bother him. And that's exactly what happens. None of them recognize Luan and keep asking who this intruder in their house is. But our protagonist simply sits at the table and starts eating. saying he's the owner of the place. That annoying cousin starts throwing a tantrum, as always. But when they hear our hero talking, they soon realize it's Lewin. The aunt asks if he had plastic surgery, and our hero says no. Then he returns to his room and asks not to be disturbed during the night because he needs to rest. The next morning, while heading to school, the driver is completely in love and even starts swerving between cars, a bit disoriented. She says it's impossible to resist Lewin, since he's a hottie. As soon as he arrives at school, the girls immediately start paying attention to him. Even those soft boys are enchanted by our hero. The girls think he's a new student who just transferred. That annoying cousin is dying of envy. Wherever he goes, the girls comment that they took a picture of him to save for later, if you know what I mean. When he arrives in class, the girls start asking what he's doing there and what his name. But Lewin doesn't answer any of them. The girls are true simps and keep pestering him from across the hallway. Since he spent 2 months training in that place, he could already use certain types of cultivation magic. His concentration is interrupted when Alice appears in the room, asking about him. Julia confesses that the friend actually lost weight and is that handsome guy in the back of the room. But Alice doesn't believe it and says Julia is trying to cover for our hero. However, as soon as she looks at him, she realizes that the aura he gives off is the same one Lewin used to have. She starts to believe it a little. Lewin asks what this girl wants with him. Alice keeps asking if he's really Lewin. Julia explains that he used all his vacation to climb the mountain, and with that he lost a lot of weight. Alice realizes that this boy looks a lot like Lewin, just way more handsome and slim. In the end, she's convinced he really is our hero. As you can imagine, she starts bothering him to play with her, but this time she treats our protagonist more kindly, since he's very handsome now. Not even the arrogant Alice can resist being near him. Julia already feels guilty, afraid Alice will steal her friend, so she says that our protagonist isn't very good at video games, and that he only won out of pure luck. This makes Alice furious, asking if she's belittling her skills since she lost to him several times in a row. Julia trembles with fear, not knowing what to say, since she's really afraid of Alice, because her family is very influential. You'll still see more about this girl's badass family. In the end, she schedules a gaming session at her own house, leaving Julia in tears on the floor, terrified that our hero will fall in love with her. Right after, several girls show up in the classroom talking about Lewin. As soon as the teacher arrives, she asks everyone to sit down because class is about to start. She finds it strange to see a different student sitting in the back of the room and asks who this boy is. Julia immediately answers that it's Lewin and that he just lost a little weight. The teacher congratulates him, saying he must have worked really hard to get in that amazing. She also says she wanted to use the vacation to train. With that, she says she's going to rearrange the students, since after vacation it was customary to make new friends. Then a general fight breaks out because all the girls want to sit next to Lewin. It became a true war, a bloody battle to sit next to our protagonist. However, he doesn't care much about girls and just stays quiet in the corner, not giving any. After much arguing, the teacher ends up placing another chubby boy next to him. At recess, the girls start fighting to see who's going to sit with him in the cafeteria. But our protagonist asks for space because they were in his way, and he wanted to eat alone. They all obey and love being mistreated by him. Go figure, right guys? 2 months ago, on the last day of school, the girls ignored him. Now, in the cafeteria, they were even fighting among themselves to get his attention. He doesn't get carried away by worldly thoughts and ends up ignoring these girls. In the end, even his little fiancée starts hitting on him. His cousin gets extremely angry since they were basically a thing, and now she's saying she doesn't want to be with him more because his cousin is now super handsome. He had grabbed his lunch in the cafeteria to eat up on the terrace, to be alone. However, Ira shows up in front of him and apologizes for everything she did to him. She says she mistreated him because she wasn't really thinking about marriage, but during the vacation, she thought it over and decided to accept the marriage proposal he made. Our protagonist says he didn't propose anything and tells her to get out of there. The girl doesn't accept the rejection and keeps insisting, saying they would make a perfect couple. However, Sigma Lewin just walks away without saying anything. The guy was getting revenge on all the girls who mistreated him, and now, instead of them humiliating themselves for a boy, he was the one humiliating them by rejecting their love declaration. He notices that Mako is going to the terrace, so he starts walking faster to get there first. She remembers that a chubby boy had followed her the same way and comments that at least now, it's a handsome guy. Actually, our protagonist wasn't following her, he just wanted to get there first. When she realizes this, the girl also starts running after him. She was quite smart and ends up overtaking you. However, he notices that she's also trying to reach the terrace and starts running faster, and so in moments they start racing to see who gets to the terrace first. Since the girl was a venerable demon, she also had an above normal cultivation strength and could compete with him. They end up giving their all, running as fast as possible. The race between them is very intense, and those 365 steps seem to never end. However, when they are about to reach the door, they end up arriving at the same time. He puts his hand in front to stop the girl from passing. She doesn't let it go and puts her hand there. So they get stuck at the terrace door. In the middle of this, an accident happens. Our protagonist ends up brushing his arm against Mako's chest, and she screams in shock. For using this dirty move, he jumps forward and claims his spot. She says that was a cheap shot. However, since this world was reversed, doing this kind of thing wasn't seen as something too wrong. He replies that he didn't do anything serious. She says he's shameless. Our protagonist goes up to her and slaps her in the face, saying that she is the shameless one since she was there fighting for space with him. I told you this world was completely reversed. Here boys could slap girls and nothing happened. But if they hit them, then things got serious. She even tries to insult him a little more. So Luan says he's going to call the police. That way they will get there and arrest her. Since she came from a more normal world, she thinks this is absurd and says he's a fool. Next time I'll win this territory. No, little girl, I got here first, so this place is mine. He ends up sitting on the ground and says that the women in this world are really in. When he picks up his phone and looks at the news, he notices something scary. Several animals were found dead. He immediately starts linking these events to the venerable demon. She had a sword that could suck the soul of living beings. She probably did this at that chicken farm to recover her cultivation. The Beast Queen was very powerful. Her combat power was even comparable to that of the Emperor. Something that could unbalance the battle between them was that magical sword of the demon. At that moment he remembers that she used the power of the weapon to shatter her power and travel through time, reincarnating in another person. He realizes that everything that happened was her fault. So he needs to stop her as quickly as possible. With that he plans to go to the place where the animals died after class to check if something abnormal is happening or if it was just an accident. As soon as class ends, he goes outside to get a taxi into the farm. Julia along with other girls starts calling for our protagonist since they want to be noticed all the time. He keeps rejecting the company of all of them. However, Julia insists because in her head, she's the only one who has a chance to be with him. I don't know about you, but I ship the protagonist way more with Mako. Julia offers to take him home, saying that the streets have been dangerous lately, and that without the company of a girl, he might get kidnapped. He says he doesn't need anyone's help. She finds this absurd, saying that he's at risk because he's too handsome. She was thinking that he was going to Alice's house to play, and decides not to insist much more. If she can help him get rid of Alice, she thinks she'll feel rewarded, and he'll want to be with her. The girl's mind is really wandering, and none of this is actually happening. In fact, he was going there to that farm to check if there was any level of spiritual energy at the venerable demon head. As soon as he arrives at this place, he notices that everything is quite calm. By using his detection cultivation, he can feel the presence of a demonic chi. That was extremely strong energy. At that moment, Alice shows up there with her motorcycle. She gets worried, asking what our hero is doing there. The girl was a top-level stalker and managed to track him to this place. He gives a little excuse saying that his taxi broke down and the driver is coming back to pick him up. However, she gets extremely furious, saying that a handsome boy like him can't be wandering around aiming, since it's. She hands him the helmet and says she's going to take him back home. He just needed to wait a little because she was going to make a delivery at that farm next. He finds this pretty strange since it was exactly in that place that he felt that demonic chi. So he stays outside, waiting to see what will happen. Soon after she returns and in a very cute way, says that he needed to put on the helmet because he was too handsome and might attract the. When she sees the beautiful eyes of our protagonist, her cheeks turn red. This girl is falling for our hero, guys, pay attention. He looks all stylish there on the motorcycle, and she even comments that he's very handsome. But she realizes she's acting like a silly love-struck girl and immediately changes her tone, trying to sound like a tough woman. So she orders him to stay put, waiting for her to come back. As soon as she moves away, he runs over there to see what's going on. There was a security tape and she ends up slipping under it. An old lady asks what she's doing there. Alice, without patience, immediately pulls a gun on the old lady, saying she didn't come to play. She asks the lady if she knows any demonic cultivator. The old lady pretends she doesn't know anything, but Alice doesn't fall for it. She shoots the old woman's arm and reveals she has spiritual power, claiming she knows the old lady is. Right after that, her weapon transforms into an awesome sword. She says she's going to exorcise that demon. Those chickens that died the night before didn't die of natural causes, but because of it. After saying that, the old woman starts transforming into a really ugly. Alice grips her weapon, preparing to launch a powerful attack. After hitting that monster, it seems to feel a bit of pain. But that was just an act, as the monster was very strong. Alice had no chance of winning. The beast throws some attacks at her, and she manages to dodge at the last second. After a little exchange of blows, she realizes that the creature's power is much greater than her. Even so, she doesn't give up, since she needs to protect Alon. She launches a spiritual sword talisman to try to seal the creature, but the monster's level is so high that the spell doesn't even. He ends up hitting her in the belly and throws the girl far away. The blow was so strong that it hurt her inside, making her spit out ketchup. When she's about to be finished off, our protagonist appears like a true hero to save the girl. If she was already in love before, imagine now, guys. She starts screaming, saying that he's weak and needs to run away immediately. She says this because she didn't know that our hero was the emperor. He begins to unleash his cultivation. That was just a small fraction of his power. Just a drop of his cultivation already made the monster tremble with fear and get all He uses his dragon emperor aura, and the spiritual pressure is so intense that the monster is crushed to the energy emanated is gigantic. Even Alice can't properly withstand this power. She had never felt something so grand before. Monks on the other side of China feel the presence of something strange. Right after, the sacred bell starts ringing, announcing that the emperor, the great elder, starts crying, saying that Taimo's father has, and all this commotion was because of the transformation of protagonist. He asks the monster where the venerable demon is, but he soon realizes that this creature was just a fragment of the magic sword. It wouldn't know any information, so he sucks all the energy from the monster and turns it into a small crystal. Alice completely changes her attitude and shows that she's deeply in love with him. But it would be very dangerous if she knew he was the great emperor. So he uses a power to erase this information. She ends up fainting, and he returns to his original. He concludes that the venerable demon had already gained enough power to create followers. And that was terrible news. The boy's heart starts beating faster, and he feels very tired. All of this because his body wasn't fit to withstand the power of the. He knew he needed to get stronger to handle all that level of power. Unfortunately for him, a bunch of street girls comes down there and finds him. They start saying they're going to take him to a place I can't mention in the video. Since he was very weak from using his cultivation, he couldn't react. The girls start bothering him. But luckily for him, Alice had woken up and says she's going to smash the faces of those girls. And that's exactly what she does, without giving those girls a chance. Alice ends up beating all of them to a pulp. She gets angry, saying it's very dangerous for him to be wandering around out. She asks why he took off the helmet. Right after she says she's going to take him, he hops on the motorcycle and holds tightly. He even comments that if it were in his world, this would be considered inappropriate. As soon as she drops him off at his house, he asks how much the ride cost. She gets mad and says she won't charge him anything. She keeps calling him fat, saying he was trembling with fear but he tells her to stop calling him. The girl complains, saying that he didn't care when people used to call him fat. But now that he's buff, it bothers him. She also gets mad, asking what he did. She had been waiting at the school gate all that time because they had arranged to play a match. He replies that he didn't agree to anything and she waited because she wanted to. He even says that her family taught him to go straight home when classes ended because it was dangerous to be alone. And the guy is pretty fake, right, guys? The girl gets all mad, saying he's making her look like a Right after Alice's phone rings, she says the job is already done. The evil target had a pretty powerful beat, but she managed to. She says she has to leave because there's a lot to do. Finally, she says goodbye. Right after, she stops the motorcycle and takes off the helmet. She says the smell of the protagonist's shampoo was distracting. Meanwhile, his cousin and Yara start nagging, saying that he's looking for trouble since he just got home with Alice. Yara says that that little blonde girl is no good, that it wouldn't be good for him to keep in contact with. She was just jealous and kept saying those things. He goes to his room and lies on the floor. He says he can't keep using his cultivation power because this body means a lot of energy. At least he got that fragment of the magic sword. That way he could use the chi in it to increase his cultivation. That girl knocks on the door and goes there, saying she has something important to talk to him. Our protagonist finds that very confusing. She seemed to be dating his cousin, and now she was there humiliating herself to be with him. She said that since the boy's grandmother's wish was for him to marry her, she would respect that old lady's wish. Finally, she says they can get engaged next year and marry after they graduate. But our protagonist slams the door in her face. He says he doesn't want to talk to this annoying girl. Does she really think the emperor will lower himself to marry an insolent? The guy grabs that crystal and starts analyzing the power emanating that fragment. Finally, he uses that sword fragment to cultivate. He realizes that the venerable demon's power is far ahead. That's why he couldn't waste time and immediately starts training him. The next day at school, the same thing as always starts happening. Those girls keep chasing him everywhere he goes. He's already starting to lose patience. Our protagonist's cousin ends up arguing with Yara. He says she keeps humiliating herself for him, but she couldn't stop thinking about Lalam for even a second. She was willing to endure any humiliation. While he was in the cafeteria brushing off the girls, Alice starts yelling, calling him fat. She told him to come over and talk to her, but our protagonist pretends he doesn't hear. When he sees Maiko passing by, he immediately starts looking, knowing she's going to the terrace to take his spot. That's why he runs after the, leaving Alice fuming with rage because she was ignored by a boy. And that was quite embarrassing. As soon as he gets to the terrace, he realizes that Maiko got there first. She says she claimed that spot before him, therefore he should. Last time we competed, I won. So this territory is mine. I let you win because you're a man. Do you really think I'd lose to a boy like you? Finally they decide to play a game. Whoever wins would own the territory. It was a very common game back when the venerable demon ruled. That's why she was very confident. But she didn't know that our protagonist Lulan was the great emperor, and also very skilled at this game. They sit down and prepare to play. She says her skill at this game is unimaginable. Lulan was confident too. He said mere mortals couldn't reach his level of. Finally the great duel began. After hours battling, he realizes the girl is also skilled, just like him. On the other hand, the venerable demon is surprised. She didn't imagine that a mere mortal in quotes, would be at her level. It was already getting dark and they still hadn't finished the match. She decides to take a picture to continue it. As she stands to leave, the girl's leg goes numb. She ends up falling on top of our hero. By coincidence, she hits Lulam right on the face with her glasses. She gets all embarrassed, saying he's shameless. He says it had nothing to do with it. He even flicks her on the forehead. Next time keep your glasses away from me, you shameless girl. Who's shameless? You? That flick on the forehead hurt. She complains, saying he's strong. But what she's really going to do is study a strategy. She won't accept that a mere human is better than her. As soon as he gets downstairs, he receives a call from Alice. She's very nervous, saying she's waiting for him for a match. She says she'll meet him at the school gate. As he goes down there, the girl really is waiting. She asks what he was doing on the terrace during the whole class. She hints that he was skipping class. He says he ended up falling asleep after lunch and couldn't wake up. Then she says she's going to take him to her house for a rematch, since she still hadn't beaten him. He ends up agreeing calmly and goes to the girl's house. She hints she might do naughty things to him, that it wouldn't be very wise to accept an incomplete stranger. He asks if she intends to do anything. She hints at things I can't say in the. Just kidding guys, she even starts teaching some things, but our cool protagonist ends up landing a punch on her stomach. In this world it was very hard for a man to have enough strength to. But this punch was very abnormal. She gets angry, asking if he's challenging her to a fight. He says no, he was just defending himself. Alright chubby, now let's go. 300 matches. Let's see who's better. She says she'll crush him in the video, but after a few minutes, he had already won more than 30 matches. He said they could keep playing for days straight, and she would never beat him. When he's about to say goodbye, he puts a little magic paper doll under the girl's table. He did this to spy on her, since she was quite peculiar. At Yara's house, she was thinking about Lola. She feels a bit sorry for having mistreated him all this time. In the school group chat, they were gossiping about something. Someone took a photo of him with Alice. This makes Yara very jealous. She gets angry, saying that stuck-up blonde girl is stealing her, and that she won't let it go unpunished. Because of those evil desires, an energy crystal starts growing on the girl's head. It gathers all her negative, showing that a dark chi is circulating in that area. A creature appears behind her. This monster usually feeds on people's. Since she had been very nervous lately, the monster appeared to take advantage of her. It explains that it is a fragment of the divine sword. It can turn anyone into an immortal being. If she wished to merge with it, it would grant anyone. She only needed to say yes, and it combined its magic power with taking over her body. With this, Yara wishes to learn the hypnosis skill. The monster says it will grant this wish. She wanted to do this to hypnotize Lulam and back home, our protagonist uses cultivation to control the little doll and spy on them. He notices she reached the last level of the chi condensation. This showed she was a cultivation. She probably had a master or something similar. It wasn't possible to reach this level training. He keeps spying on the girl around the house. She goes to her room and changes clothes. There was a well-equipped arsenal of weapons. She used other items to hunt certain monsters. When she is about to leave the house, the paper doll runs and sticks to the girl's skirt. Thus our protagonist can track her going to a wedding party. When they arrive, the wedding planner welcomes them. Alice was there just to ensure the guests' safety. After a while, she feels a scary energy coming from. She ends up confronting them during the wedding. She realizes her disguise was noticed. Alice tells the monster it's time to reveal himself. The boy transforms into a werewolf. A frantic battle starts between.
She summons her magic sword right at the start. After exchanging some blows, she defeats the werewolf. The girl starts crying because her husband, not even she knew the groom was. She cries a lot. Asks to call an ambulance. Says she won't forgive the blonde girl for what she did. But Alice says that was for the good of everyone. The groom had made several victims. Actually, she was just doing her job and
Finally, she uses a spell so that everyone at the wedding forgets that day. Alice answers the phone and says the job is done. But the paper doll falls to the ground. It runs to the werewolf boy to check what happened. She uses a reincarnation spell. She teleports the guy's vital energy into the doll. He was about to die, but the Emperor gave him a new chance at life, turning him into his mascot. He said it would be useful to have a doll like him. The guy doesn't understand what's happening. His name was Shen Shil. He starts calling Luan master, says he will now obey all his commands. Then our protagonist orders the boy to explain how cultivation works in this world. He explains that, due to scarcity of energy in the realm, cultivators go to other worlds to meditate, but the number of secret places is limited. All are heavily controlled by clans and families. Even if ordinary cultivators join a clan, they don't get many resources. So if you're a novice cultivator, you'll need the tutelage of a famous clan. Otherwise, you won't progress much. That's why some cultivators follow the evil cultivation. It was the only way for them to gain power. And that's what happened to the little boy. He got involved in evil cultivation and became that ugly werewolf. Of course, cultivators hunt down those who follow the evil path. That's why Alice appeared to finish him off. He also explains that she's part of a great family, the Zal family. They are one of the 3 great families that control these spiritual worlds. Luan asks the boy if anyone has ever reached the level of immortality. He answers he's never heard of that. Right after, the boy asks if he can keep visiting his fiancée. Luan says yes, but he must not be noticed. The poor boy starts celebrating, saying that master is the best of all. The next day, our protagonist ends up taking him up and down in that school backpack. He can't believe his master is a high school student. Shen is enchanted that the master is very popular, says he wouldn't expect less from Master Luan. As soon as he arrives in the classroom, he notices the desk is packed with snacks. He starts thinking that's Julia's doing. But Yara appears and says she left some little gifts for him. Our protagonist starts getting irritated because that girl seems like a tick. Our protagonist's cousin appears and starts throwing a fit, saying she's cheating on him. He threatens to slap the girl. She grabs his hand and says it's all over between them, that now she only has eyes for Luan. That makes the cousin run away crying. Everyone starts laughing at him. She still tells Luan that if anyone bothers him, he can count on her. She will handle it personally. Everyone teases Yara, saying she hated Luan and now humiliates herself for him. The girl pretends not to hear anything. Rumors start spreading at school. Everyone tries to get close to Luan. Alice seems a bit jealous, but tells her friend she doesn't care about that. Says she doesn't like ugly boys. She was just playing hard to get, but actually she was also in love. Yara shows up making a sour face. The two start competing to see who will have lunch with our hero. But the place he really liked to have lunch was on the terrace. With Maiko, she was already there eating and says he's late. She had arranged the pieces the way they stopped the game the day before. Right after they start that exciting match, she gets nervous, wondering if the tactic she studied all night would finally work. He remembers only one person was good enough to face him. That person was the venerable demon. But there was no chance that dumb girl was her. Right after, he grabs his lunchbox and starts eating in front of her. The girl says that's an insult. Asks if he's ever seen any fat person on the terrace. He answers no, sweating. She says she's mad at him because he fell on her. Ended up hurting her ribs. She still feels pain in that area to this day. After that, she opens the WhatsApp group. Sees gossip saying that Luan, that chubby boy, had turned into a handsome guy. Right away, she realizes the guy in front of her had lied. She shows the photo to him, making our protagonist very nervous. He keeps insisting he doesn't know any fat person. She says he's shameless and lying blatantly, but respects if he doesn't want to talk about the past. She says she doesn't care about that. She only brought that toothpick, saying she washed it and made it smell good, but now it probably won't fit him anymore. Luan is a bit shocked. When he receives the toothpick, he thanks her. The girl says that was a tie. Recognizes he plays very well. He says she's very good. She's one of the few people who equals him. Finally, she stands to leave. Says from now on, the fight between them is over. But our protagonist suggests best of 3. He says that because he doesn't want to lose contact with the girl. She ends up accepting right after she says her name is Maiko. They hadn't introduced themselves yet. From there, a little vibe starts between them. While they played the game, Maiko thinks how someone so good like him can exist. That's because she doesn't know he's an emperor. After he offers best of 3, after winning the match, Maiko is happy to be able to play with him again. Our protagonist mascot, that little fox, gets upset with the master's power. Luan was so cool that girls fell at his feet. Our hero wanted to know where the evil resources cultivators were using came from. The little fox says it's in the Shadowgate network. The dark web, guys. On the dark web, things were wild. The guys sold illegal items. Since the resources were controlled by the 3 powerful families, the Shadow Clan has existed for a long time. It served for other cultivators to acquire resources. Those 3 clans did not let the purest energy pass to them. That's why the guys resorted to clandestine methods to get resources. He needed a lot of money. He asks the little boy what he did to get cash. He says he did missions to eliminate people, or if preferred he could get a sugar mommy. She would pay for everything he wanted. Our protagonist gets angry for him, suggesting that, thinking about it, it wouldn't be so bad. Right guys, you just stand there watching anime, playing video games, and the old lady on the yacht would pay for everything for you. But Luan was a dignified guy. He wouldn't stoop to that kind of thing. When leaving school she was outside calling him fat, but he ignores her. That makes the girl very angry. She says the ex-girlfriend of our hero tried to embarrass her. Luan says Yara isn't his ex. Alice didn't want to hear it. She just wanted to invite him for a motorcycle ride. She confirms she won't do anything strange. She keeps insisting a lot. And until now, I don't know why our protagonist makes such a fuss. If I were him, I would have swept the floor already. Just hit it once and for all. That's what we want to see. Yara is waiting for our protagonist and the sword's energy. She asks why the girl doesn't hypnotize him already. Since she got that power, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Because if it depended on her, our protagonist would never choose that ugly girl, since he has 2 beauties at his disposal. Alice mocks our hero, saying he was too naive trusting her when she said she wouldn't do anything to him. Luan at that moment is quite sly and attacks Alice's parents right away, showing he's a man of respect and can't be messed with. That's it, that's what a guy has to do. Stop the fuss already. The girl stops the motorcycle and asks who let him touch that restricted area. Our protagonist walks away all cool, telling her to remember they are just classmates, that he doesn't want anything special with her. That makes Alice very angry, implying she was really in love with him. Finally, she starts yelling that there are many guys who would give anything to be with her, and so she wouldn't stoop to be with some fat guy like him. She turns to leave. We see that our hero left another paper doll to spy on her. Back at his house, he decides to research more about this Shadowgate network, used by many to get evil cultivation. The little fox goes to the computer to start researching the dark web. She ends up showing him this black door of the internet, but he ended up on a very shady site, let's say. Luan asks why the little fox put that strange site. It's a site we can't show here in the video. The little boy says he entered the wrong site and then put the correct one. The right site was basically the black market. There they sold several sacred items at very high prices. It also worked as an auction where several people could place bids. Our protagonist noticed the items there were low quality compared to his world. That's why he could make a big profit selling the items he made. The little fox implied that our protagonist had little money. He got mad and asked the boy how much money he had in the account. The mascot answered he had 30,000. You're not that good, you're a failure. He transferred this amount to our hero so he could buy some ingredients to produce a sacred talisman. As soon as the orders arrived, he started producing the talisman. Seems like there's no post office there since deliveries came fast and weren't taxed. Good thing our protagonist doesn't live in Brazil, right? Because instead of costing 30,000 it would cost 60,000 and take about 2 months to arrive. He takes a deep breath while the fox doubts Luan's magical abilities. As soon as he finishes drawing the talisman, a dragon appears, showing that our hero is worthy to be called emperor. Using low-level equipment, he produces a sacred talisman. The boy is amazed because he had never seen a talisman with such purity. Oh come on, this talisman is nothing. The quality is still pretty low, says our hero. All humble, not really. He puts it on auction with a starting price of 500,000 bucks. Soon several anonymous profiles start increasing the bids. This happens because they recognize the talisman's quality. Using the paper doll he had with Alice, he manages to spy on her. He notices she was also bidding on that talisman. Since she was quite rich, she could bid high, which helped raise the value. Thus he managed to sell and make a lot of money. He saw on some site that some youths were disappearing. He wonders if this was the work of the venerable demon who was loose with the fragments of that sword. The next day at school, 3 boys block Luan, preventing him from going up to the terrace. The guys were angry because he was very popular and attracted all the girls' attention. They say they will beat him up and make him ugly. But we see this is the work of the scheming Era. She wants to save him from those guys so that our hero falls in love. She hypnotized those guys. But our hero is very clever. When they attack him, our protagonist manages to block and counterattack, trapping one guy against the wall.
The other two jerks attack at the same time to knock our hero down the stairs. Iara waits for the right moment to appear and save the day. But who appears is Miko, ruining Ara's plan. She commands respect, making the guys tremble like puppies. That makes Iara very nervous. Then she appears running, pretending to be worried about Luan. "Oh beautiful Luan Zinho, as soon as I heard the commotion, I ran to protect you. Are you okay my dear?" Very fake, right? Our hero doesn't fall for her lame talk. The girl even tries to grab Luan's arms to take him to victory. But Miko interrupts, squeezing the shameless girl's fist. The two stare at each other with a lot of hatred. Iara tells Miko not to meddle in her. At that moment our hero passes by Iara. He tells Miko not to pay attention to that useless girl. The guy was truly a badass Sigma. He didn't give in to pressure from any girl. I bet if it were you, you'd already be a puppet of these girls. Especially because I know you get carried away by much uglier girls. So leave a like and a comment so pretty wives show up for you. Like given, comment made. Now the system's blessing will fall on you. I'm sure of it. Iara even tries to hypnotize our protagonist but fails because his cultivation level is much higher than her. Miko knew that girl was a puppet of her demonic sword, so she keeps provoking, saying she will never get Luan. Iara gets blood in her eyes, saying no one will have him if it's not her. If I don't get Luan, no one will. She was really going crazy. After class, already at home, our hero goes to that dark web auction to try to get more money. He saw through his paper doll that Alice was buying some items. He comments to his mascot about the Phoenix Group, responsible for eliminating illegal cultivators to establish order in the country. But it was that same Phoenix Group that bought from underground organizations like on those dark websites. Basically, cultivators here were hypocrites. The little fox says the Phoenix Group could eliminate all black market sellers if it wanted to. But the little fox says he doesn't really know why this group lets people sell those items freely on the site. After getting some more cash, our protagonist ends up buying some sacred stones to improve the items he was making. He buys a sacred ruby, turquoise in color. With that he uses 2 talismans to purify the stone even more. The items he sells start attracting everyone's attention. People begin to wonder if he's not a charlatan fooling everyone. The sacred ruby was reaching a value of $5 million bucks. When least expected, someone made an offer of $15 million. The guy was already getting rich. Later he spies on Alice again. The girl was investigating the disappearance of the youths. Her gaming setup was insane. Instead of playing, she was trying to save people. Since she found no clues, she got frustrated and started complaining. She said the only man who wasn't unbearable was Luan, but she didn't want to admit she liked him. The next day during lunch, our protagonist was a bit distracted. Miko asks if he's not up for playing today. If he wants, he can play another day with her. She insists, and he ends up accepting since he was worried about the youth disappearing. This could be linked to the venerable demon. Little did our protagonist know that the girl he had the biggest rivalry with was right in front of him. And this episode marks their long-awaited fight. So keep watching, because the end of this episode is really good. Meanwhile, the Beast Queen was right in front of him, and didn't want to win just because he was distracted. He goes to the railing for some fresh air. She mocks him, telling him not to jump from up there. At that moment, that unbearable Yara was spying on Luan. As he passes the door to leave, she blocks him. Says she won't let him pass there. Miko tells the girl to get out of the way and stop bothering her friend. That crazy girl starts cursing the venerable demon, saying she stole her man and she will finish her. Our protagonist wonders since when he belongs to Miko. But Yara just turns her back and leaves, implying she's planning something. She really had some tricks up her sleeve. Says she will hypnotize him tonight and take him to some isolated place to do who knows what. You can imagine what she's going to do, right, guys? No need to say at night, that's exactly what she tries. She casts a long-distance hypnosis spell. But as you probably guessed, it didn't work. His cultivation strength is infinitely greater. The hypnosis stops at his energy block. He wakes up. The little fox says she felt a hypnosis magic pass by. Our hero realizes at that moment that someone is trying to fool him, so to speak. The next day at school, he comes prepared to try to find out who did that. As he passes in front of Iara, she orders him to get ready and go to her house at night. At that moment, he already realizes that shameless girl tried to hypnotize him. He destroys her spy paper doll. The demonic sword appears and says the girl is pathetic because she couldn't feel she was being watched. Neither the girl nor the sword knew who was spying, so they needed to find out as soon as possible. Otherwise, their plan would be ruined. Our hero realizes that Iara alone couldn't detect the paper doll. He begins to deduce it was the work of the venerable demon or some fragment of the sword. But since there are many cultivators in this world, he can't act rashly. It could be that Yara is allied with other evil cultivators, so the plan to defeat Yara works. He programs the exact time Alice will pass by on her motorcycle. He throws himself in front of her to get hit. She runs toward him, all worried, asking why he stepped out without looking both ways. He pretends to be hypnotized. Repeats that he must go to Yara's house tonight. Alice tries to stop him, but he keeps walking, as if really hypnotized. She uses cultivation power to break the hypnosis. Hits his forehead to remove the spell. It doesn't work at first. She uses a ghost redemption seal to break the magic, which seemed very strong. Right after that, our hero stops pretending to be hypnotized. She asks what happened to him. Our clever hero asks Alice why she wants to know so much about his life, and if by any chance she's in love. The girl gets angry and says she's not interested in him. She just wants to take the boy to the hospital so he can't sue her later, since she hit him. Lewin says he's fine. When he tries to leave, she grabs his collar and rubs a blank check in his face, saying it's to pay all medical. Then she leaves all mad. Our protagonist ends up with a blank check from a billionaire girl. If I were him, I'd already have written 500 million on it, no doubt. Meanwhile, Alice rushes on her motorcycle to Yara's house, because she already sensed something. She takes off her helmet and casts a spell to summon her magic sword. Entering the house, she searches all the rooms and realizes Yara was obsessed with Lewin. She even had a book containing all information about him. When she looks through it, her face turns all red. I don't even want to imagine what kind of info or photos might be in that book. With that, she already deduces Yara is making the boys disappear. There was some info about the missing victim. She calls the Phoenix Group's investigation center and passes on the info about Yara. She concludes Yara might be responsible for the many crimes happening. Since she had escaped, suspicion grew even more. Meanwhile, our protagonist thinks about how Yara found out his paper doll was with her. That could only be the work of someone very powerful like the venerable demon, or even a fragment of her sword. News of Yara's disappearance starts spreading in all newspapers. Our protagonist's cousin goes there to find out what happened. If our hero had any news, but since Lewin didn't get along with his cousin, he ends up slamming the door in his face. Finally, he turns on the computer to check the news. Indeed, she was in all reports. The little fox says that woman is crazy and should pay for messing with his master. To locate the girl, he decides to create a magic compass. This compass detects evil powers. He uses his energy to fuse the boards and creates the frame of the magic compass. He still needs magical crystals, so he uses the ruby he had enriched. With that, he fuses everything to create an ancient magic detection. This was an extremely rare item, one the little fox had never seen. He was amazed by the item's level. At that moment, he feels someone's presence and asks his mascot to hide in his pocket. Who was outside was Alice. Our protagonist teases her, pretending to call the police. Finally, the girl opens the window and enters. I confess that at that moment, I got confused between Alice and Mako. Both are very beautiful and put up quite a fight between. Comment below who you prefer to be with our hero. I'll say in advance that there will be a somewhat romantic scene here with our hero and one of those two girls. So watch till the end, because this episode is really good. He asks what the blonde is doing in his house. She gives a little excuse, saying she came to see if he was hurt. Luckily, Lewin hadn't fully healed. He left the injuries so she could see in case she had doubts. He immediately shows his elbow, which is all bruised. The girl rolls up his pants to see his knee. He gets a little embarrassed. The girl says she will clean the wounds so they won't scar. She thought our hero's legs were nice and even blushed. Meanwhile, the little fox cheers for our hero to do well. I was rooting too at that moment. He asks if she came only to take care of his injuries or if there's something else. She says she has something to ask. She asks what Yara said the last time they met. He says he doesn't remember anything. Alice is satisfied with that and prepares to leave by jumping out the window. He touches the girl's shoulder and asks her to wait. Says that if she wants, she can act as bait to help him reach Yara. The girl's cheeks turn red. You can already tell she's quite shameless, since she was staring at our hero's abs. She jumps down, saying she will like helping him. The next day at school, the girls keep bothering him just because he's handsome. Other girls show up saying there's a prettier guy who transferred to their school. The girls run to see who he is. He's not even that good looking and has a frog face, God forbid. They seem to like him a lot. While this guy is in love with Alice, she goes to our hero's classroom and ends up kicking the door, destroying everything. She says she'll wait for him after class. As soon as classes end, she appears and tells him to follow her. The girl seemed like a stalker. He tells the blonde he's already healed. If she keeps pulling his pants up to check his leg again, he'll call the police. She says she doesn't mind and hands him a notebook. She says she has contact with a police relative. She entered Ayara's house, but we know that's a lie. She was the one who entered and took the book. There was information on how to use Luan. Something pretty creepy, right guys? Even though he already knew more or less what was in that book, he was still quite surprised. After reading it, it seemed like Yara wanted to kidnap several men to drain their energy, so to speak. Our hero says he never thought this girl was so shameless. If you like this story and want to know what happens with this crazy girl,
Alice says she's already searching for Yara everywhere and that he should feel safe being by her side. So, our protagonist puts on his glasses and says that Yara is probably using some disguise. That's why they weren't able to find her, and that she would need to use another method to track this girl down. He says this so she'll look for that compass on the dark web and make a lot of money by selling that item. But he also wanted to help Alice find Yara and defeat her, so basically he was killing two birds with one stone. In the end, his plan worked and Alice leaves saying she's going to find a new way to track down this girl. He gets home and goes straight to the dark web to see if the item has been sold. His mascot checks the auction and sees that the item's price is going up fast, already passing the 5 million mark. At Alice's house, she notices that the magical compass is super expensive, but she has no other option and ends up making an even higher offer, raising it to 10 million. The next day, she manages to buy the item and takes several members of the Phoenix organization to look for Yara, since this compass can detect magical energies. However, shameless Yara used her magical powers in various places around the city to confuse the compass. The old lady, who is more experienced, says she'll go ahead because there might be a trap. As soon as they get close, a gigantic K-shaped hand tries to attack them. Our hero's paper doll keeps watching everything. While he's distracted, a girl shows up, breaking everything in his house. She was hypnotized by Yara's power and his cousin had already been captured. The girl prepares to land a powerful blow on our hero, and he ends up letting her hit him. He even comments that if he hadn't blocked part of the blow with his shield, he probably would have been sent straight to the afterlife, since the punch was super strong. With that, she takes him and his cousin to Mavan and leaves them in a warehouse. Once they arrive, she removes the bag from his head and he realizes it really was Yara's doing, and she's happy to see him there. Our protagonist lets out a sinister laugh and she asks why he's mocking her. Very angry, she throws him against the wall as if he weighed less than paper. He tells the girl not to come closer or she's going to regret it. Right, so you're just pretending to be cocky and acting all full of yourself just because the girls like you, but I bet you've never been with a woman before, you wimp. She says. The demon sword appears and says that Alice managed to break through all the traps that had been set and was now heading directly there. So Yara should hurry up. The girl keeps saying she's waiting for the Emperor and that she wants to seize his power. When our protagonist hears her talk about the Emperor, he starts to figure out that the venerable demon's hand is in this story. But it definitely wasn't Yara because the Queen of Beasts was much stronger than her. They are taken to an underground warehouse with a magic circle in the center that will be used to extract the boy's life energy. Not far from there, Alice is trying to calibrate the compass to go to the last trace of magic since she imagines that's where Yara is. At that moment, the small fragment of the demon sword appears saying he's going to stop them. The beast is really badass and starts throwing all of them far away. The guy's power is insane and he summons several sharp blades that attack the Phoenix warrior group. The old lady manages to protect our heroine and says she'll take care of them while Alice calls for reinforcements. The beast says she can't go against him alone, implying that it would be hard to defeat him. With that, he creates a prison preventing them from escaping. This was the Soul Devourer formation, and if they stayed there too long they would die. The first victim starts to fall. That ghost begins to suck the woman's life energy and her legs start trembling as she realizes she was dealing with a very powerful monster. She then summons her flaming bow and arrow and gets ready to shoot the ghost. She's pretty badass too and says this attack will finish him off. After shooting several arrows, the ghost tanks everything like it's nothing. Even the old lady says that nothing they do will work. At that moment, he starts releasing a poisonous breath that turns corpses into zombies, which begin attacking the heroines. At the last second, she manages to dodge and slices the zombie in half with her fire blade. Two other members were turned into puppets and start attacking Alice. The old lady tells her she must not feel sorry for the puppets and has to eliminate them, even if they look like her friends. Alice hesitates for a moment and because of that, she ends up getting seriously wounded in the stomach. With a small mistake, she was hit by a fatal blow. Using the little energy she had left, she managed to finish off the two zombies. However, a blow like that to the stomach was hard to survive and the poor heroine collapses on the ground, coughing in a lot of pain. It seemed like everything was lost and she apologizes for not being strong enough. The ghost managed to create two more puppets and they were about to finish off Alice. The old lady starts shouting for her to run. At that moment, she realizes the ghost is about to attack and that she wouldn't be able to save the girl. That was the end, she would be defeated. However, the puppet misses the attack, and when Alice looks up, she sees that the zombie's head had been cut off. A girl had appeared to save the day. Her name was Sasha, the leader of the Phoenix group. She was powerful, and the zombie that was behind them is eliminated in the blink of an eye. The old lady realizes that the famous Miss Sasha had shown up to save the day. The ghost keeps mocking, saying the little girl came just to embarrass herself. Sasha asks if this lousy ghost is the one they've been getting beaten by. Using her sword, she easily pierces that stinky ghost and defeats the enemies. Alice had heard of this girl's power but didn't know she was this strong. Sasha says that with this injury the girl would die, but that she urgently needs a doctor. She gives her a medicine for the girl to drink and stop the bleeding. After drinking the medicine, Sasha says she will feel less pain, but she still needs to go to the hospital as quickly as possible. Alice tells Sasha that the ghost's goal was to capture Lewin, and she calls Sasha Grandma, asking her for help. The little girl calls herself Grandma, and we already start to guess that this girl must actually be quite old despite her appearance. Finally, Alice faints because of the injury, and Sasha asks the old lady where this Lewin that Alice mentioned is. Before the old lady can answer, Sasha already feels the power coming from a certain direction, and her sword flies to her so she can ride it and travel there. She gets on the sword and flies off to save our hero. Yara was standing on that magic circle and begins the process of draining the boy's life energy. By doing this, she starts to age. The little fox explains that this really wears people out. Yara hears someone knocking on the door. When she opens it, she sees a little girl and asks if she's lost. The little girl asks if by any chance Lewin is there because she came to rescue him. Yara immediately gets furious. When our hero least expects it, he sees an explosion behind the wall and Yara is impaled by a gigantic sword. The little girl is pretty badass and acts like that was the simplest thing in the world. The scene is very detailed and the shameless one starts cursing, saying she's going to defeat the little girl. However, Sasha is super badass and manages to dodge the attack from Yara's own sword. Yara is crushed on the ground and the demon spirit says that she won't be able to win if she keeps acting on impulse. She needs to think before acting. One day earlier, we go back to the scene where we see Miko along with her clone. She had made a clone to keep training in that game, and even though she easily defeated the clone, she couldn't beat that boy at school. She keeps wondering why the hell he was so good. She didn't know that Lewin was the emperor she was looking for in order to defeat him. At that moment, she feels an extremely strong ki coming from a demon sword. And it was exactly that sword which was in Yara's possession, who had managed to kidnap a member of the celestial demon sect. That's the guy the girls at school thought was super handsome and ran off to see him. The famous frog-faced guy. The sword spirit keeps blackmailing the boy and the venerable demon lady appears, making the sword spirit all scared. She tells her servant not to make such a scene and he keeps apologizing. She asks if he had allied with Yara and he says yes. The frog-faced guy says that if the venerable demon lets him go alive, he will swear loyalty to her and do whatever she commands. Besides that, the celestial demon sect was a rival of the Phoenix group, and they had similar power levels. She responds by saying she doesn't need men, she needs dogs. And the guy immediately starts barking like a little dog. The world seems to have more pathetic guys than in our real world. With that, Miko orders the purple sword spirit to keep that frog-faced guy alive. That kid already starts thanking her for sparing his life, and from now on he would be a slave. As they leave, she asks her spirit what his goal was in allying with Yara. He says he did all this as part of a plan to use her as a host to acquire wife's energy. Right after that, he was going to abandon the girl. He gives the location of his base and where he's holding people captive and says that in less than 10 days he will have recovered all the power he needs. Aiko says that he has a good plan and asks if Yara is being a good host. He says yes and that she's being very easy to manipulate. Miko also says that her schoolmate Lewin was kidnapped because of her, and that's why they should go there to solve this. Since she still hadn't beaten him in the game, she wouldn't let anything bad happen to him because she needed to defeat him first. She says that, but we all know it's because she likes him. She just doesn't want to admit that she loves Lewin. She still didn't have all the fragments of the sword and needed to gather all the parts to become stronger. She warns this fragment that the Emperor is also in this world. Since the fragments have their own thoughts, this fragment that was with Yara didn't know the Emperor had come to this world. As I mentioned, each piece of the sword fragment has its own mind. The sword confesses that when it arrived in this world, it sensed a very powerful energy behind another sword fragment. It was probably the Emperor who ended up defeating that fragment and used its energy. Back to the present, this same sword fragment is there talking to Yara and keeps saying that if she lets him control her body, he will be able to fight on equal footing with Sasha, the leader of the Phoenix group. He even says it would be easy to defeat her. At that moment, she prepares a secret technique. Yara starts crying, saying she doesn't know how to fight. The demon sword says that this girl is a complete useless and ends up controlling her body, making Yara's expression change completely.
With that, they start battling using their maximum power, and Yara became much stronger with the sword's power. The girl launches a crimson energy sword, but Yara manages to catch it and launch that sword again, which ends up bouncing off Sasha's shield. Yara has some tricks up her sleeve and begins summoning a black dragon. The leader of the Phoenix group says that this is a secret technique lost for many years, but this summoning wasn't as strong as in the books. The little girl launches an attack with her sword, aiming to defeat the dragon, and without much difficulty ends up sending the power back into the monster's mouth, easily defeating it. To kill the hero's joy, the venerable demon shows up. This was Miko's appearance when she was transformed. You'll see how badass she is. At that moment, the sword's aura leaves Yara's body and materializes in front of everyone. Sasha mocks, saying that this sword is incomplete and therefore very weak. However, the venerable demon feels offended and asks her to repeat what she just said, leaving Sasha trembling in fear. Look at that, you really have to be shameless to beat up the dog when the owner isn't around. You should be more careful, little girl. What Sasha was feeling there was an overwhelming power at a level never seen before in the cultivator's world. She even starts to sweat cold because she realizes she's screwed. Looking up, she sees that absurdly powerful being but doesn't know who it is. The venerable is really very powerful compared to the cultivator's levels on Earth. In the blink of an eye, she appears next to the leader of the Phoenix group. The little girl even tries to cast a sealing spell called Tatiya technique of the 8th level of sealing. However, the venerable is too powerful, and that seal, which seemed to be working, starts to catch fire. Sasha gives her all to place that seal on top of another seal. The little girl was also very powerful and even summons an elder to finish sealing the venerable demon. But as I already said, the venerable is extremely powerful and ends up blowing everything to pieces. Revealing herself in the middle of the explosion's smoke, wielding that broken sword, she points at the little girl without giving her time to react. And so the venerable appears next to her. At that moment, Sasha realizes she has been struck. She realizes the venerable's strength was much greater than she expected and ends up falling to the ground, unable to react. The sword apologizes to its master, saying Yara's body was too weak and that's why she couldn't properly fight against this useless little girl. Sasha lies in agony on the ground, trying to summon her sword back to continue the battle. When she pulls her weapon to attack the venerable, the Queen of Beasts simply slices the sword in half, destroying the sacred weapon of the Phoenix leader. Aiko starts throwing some harsh truths in Sasha's face, saying she thinks too highly of herself and is too arrogant. That's why it wouldn't be worth fighting her. Only the Emperor would be worthy of facing her. With that, she starts calling the immortal Emperor so that he can have a worthy battle with her and finish what they started in the other world. She even calls him a coward because he hadn't shown up yet. And since he was the strongest man in the world, only he could stop her. She also says that if he doesn't show up within 10 seconds, she will eliminate this little girl and everyone in this city. If he doesn't show up, she will exterminate all the people in the world. Sasha already feels that everything is over. The little fox near our hero has no idea what's going to happen. And we see that our protagonist was there watching everything, and he needed to find a way to transform into his emperor form to stop this total destruction. The venerable starts counting and the 10-second countdown is almost over. At that moment, a very bright light falls from the sky, illuminating the entire place and hitting exactly where they were. A fire tornado burns several meters away from the venerable, and she is surprised to realize how the emperor had already become so strong in such a short time. And there he was, everyone. The moment we've all been waiting for, the final battle between the immortal emperor and the venerable demon. She keeps saying she knew he wasn't dead and that now it was time to settle the score between them. Several people in the city watch that light and don't quite understand what was happening. News starts popping up in all the papers about what was going on in the city. At that moment, Yulia even sees the news on her phone and gets worried about our hero because these bizarre events were happening in the neighborhood where he lived. She was worried about him. When she opens the door to go to his house to check if he was okay, the emperor shows up, dragging the venerable demon.
The girl's house was completely destroyed, and he had crossed the building from one side to the other. The battle here is going to be at Dragon Ball level, and if they want, they can destroy the entire planet Earth. Check out this battle, because it's going to be monstrous. The venerable said she won't let him get out of this unscathed. Even though her sword isn't complete, she will win at all costs. She makes an energy slash toward our hero. The attack is so powerful that it ends up launching him onto a building, destroying the entire place. Just imagine how many people are getting caught up in this battle. Those people had nothing to do with this. The venerable prepares an energy attack and ends up striking the skies, turning day into night. It even starts to rain. From the clouds, a gigantic dragon appears and starts breathing energy at the emperor, destroying part of the city. People run in desperation amid the destruction. The venerable says the emperor is very weak since he didn't even manage to dodge. But when she looks carefully, he was untouched, surrounded by a sacred protective barrier. There are many rumors that previous generations of demon kings were evil, but their actions were even more brutal than their advisors. I didn't believe it, but now that I can see with my own eyes, you are identical to your father. This makes the venerable demon very angry because she hated her father. She orders her dragon to attack our protagonist. That creature begins spitting out several energy balls, exploding everything in the city and causing complete chaos. These summons were very powerful, and our protagonist needed to deal with this as quickly as possible. Another creature keeps causing widespread destruction, leaving a trail of fire throughout the city. The Emperor's protective barrier was cracking, but he had an ace up his sleeve. He ends up using a divine light projectile to stop that dragon. This was a sacred level sword technique. The Venerable didn't expect that he could already use such a high difficulty power. With that, he ends up using part of Sasha's sword, which had been destroyed. It wasn't his divine sword, but even so he could channel his power to quickly end that fight. She realizes he had managed to place a paper doll on that sword, thus bringing the weapon to him. Right after, she uses another attack with her sword, saying she will now destroy that protective barrier. Third law of life, celestial intervention. This was a sacred technique of the Emperor, and he imbues the sword with divine light. By using these advanced techniques, the Venerable gets excited, saying it's always good to fight against him because the Emperor always has an ace up his sleeve. With that, he manages to block that sword attack from the Venerable. Right after, they start clashing in the sky, causing loud booms due to their power. The fight was intense. Since she could use her sword better, due to her familiarity, she manages to land a powerful strike on the Emperor. However, they were one step ahead. That was just a paper doll, leaving the Venerable very frustrated. At that moment, the military shows up to protect the city and also ends up interfering with the fight. They fire several projectiles, but the Queen of Beasts manages to block them using a shield and says no one should interrupt her battle. She even launches some attacks on the planes, but they manage to dodge and fire some missiles. The Venerable also dodges, but the missiles are homing and end up following her, hitting and causing a gigantic explosion. The Emperor knows that humans wouldn't be able to stop her but could hold her off for a few brief seconds. That time would be necessary for him to forge a very good weapon, or he might lose the fight because of it. The planes realize they caused a pretty big mess, but from below a monster's hand emerges, grabbing the planes and destroying them. The Queen of Beasts made another summoning, which was a very ugly monster. She said this was the price for them interfering in her fight and that she would destroy them because it was the only way to make them stop. The sword tells her to take advantage of this locust monster, which is quite powerful, and go full force against the Emperor. She agrees with her demon sword because she understands that since the Emperor was hiding, he must be planning something against her. However, when she looks at the completely destroyed city, she hears the sound of a little child crying. The little boy was looking for his father and wouldn't stop crying. When the locust was about to hit the little boy, the Venerable remembers the time when she was a child and had been abandoned in the forest by her father to become stronger. Yulia was on the bridge trying to meet up with Luen, but traffic was stopped and she ended up stuck there. Looking outside, she notices there's a water tornado forming in the river. People get out of their cars to take pictures because some very bizarre events were happening in the city. That was the work of our hero because the Emperor was forging the divine sword and needed a lot of water. After placing part of his power, he begins using the water to cool the sword, causing a strong tremor and splashing water over all the cars on the bridge. The water vapor caused by this event made visibility almost zero. Yulia gets out of the car to try to figure out what was happening. When she gets to the bridge, she is very surprised because that river had been completely dried up. But now the Emperor had managed to forge a divine sword and his power had become much higher. He apologizes to the Venerable Demon for taking so long. She says he wasted time and resources for nothing because even if he used a powerful sword, he would never be able to defeat her. She was holding that little boy in her hands and managed to take him to his father, who hugs the child and starts crying. We can already see that the Queen of Beasts isn't all that bad, even though she is eliminating the entire population of the city. But wait and see why I say she's not that evil. You'll see. She prepares an attack aiming to eliminate our hero, and he also charges another to counter. She uses the technique Deadly Crimson Sky Elimination, and he counters using the Golden Dragon Destroyer of 1,000 Autumns. Thus both powers collide in the air Dragon Ball style. The powers are evenly matched, but our hero is pretty overpowered and unlocks a new power called Transcendent Divine Dragon. With that, he manages to surpass the Venerable's power in an overwhelming way. He manages to defeat his rival. The power was so strong that it even opened a three-dimensional portal in the sky, and that crack began to spread a sinister power. Already defeated, the girl says that the Emperor's power is an exaggeration and that now she can no longer counter his attacks. So she surrenders and admits defeat. She no longer had the strength to act. Our hero keeps saying that the battle had been decided a long time ago. However, another part of that magic sword ends up appearing. She sees that her master is lying on the ground, defeated, and therefore ends up joining the sword part that was already with the Venerable Demon. Unexpectedly, she ends up striking Miko. That's right guys, she had betrayed the Venerable Demon and said that since she was weak, she was no longer fit to be her master. The sword was a true traitor and had turned against her. When she was about to finish Miko, our hero goes over and rescues the Venerable. She keeps saying for the guy to put her down since they were rivals and had been battling for many years. The girl still says that being saved by the Emperor was basically the same as being killed by the sword. He tells her to stop acting so arrogantly and that she should save her energy to heal. He had a plan and says he needs her help, but first she should promise him something. They even talk a bit more, but we don't see it here in the speech bubbles. It will be shown to us a little later what they were planning. The venerable demon's sword ends up evolving and transforms into a pretty powerful monster. He keeps saying he wants to hear what the Emperor and the Venerable are planning. At this moment, our protagonist begins to cast a spell called Celestial Light Prison. With that, several energy plates fall from the sky, imprisoning the sword on the ground. This type of magic could only be broken when someone used the cultivation of Yugi. But since the sword couldn't use that type of cultivation, she wouldn't be able to break this magic. So our protagonist keeps mocking her. However, our protagonist had underestimated this sword since she actually managed to break the spell. She keeps saying she's going to destroy humanity because they don't deserve to survive. After charging at our hero, he simply snaps his fingers and ends up hitting the sword with an overwhelming power, throwing the monster far away. Now that the monster was weak, he orders Miko to absorb energy. She begins doing that, recovering her strength. Everything that sword had gathered now was with Miko, the Queen of Demons. Thus she regains her strength and tells the Emperor that it's time to save lives. In that intergalactic portal, some monsters from another world began to appear. They needed to defeat these monsters and seal the hole, or humanity was doomed. The creatures from this sinister place were much more powerful than the monsters already in the world, and therefore it would be hard to deal with them. The Venerable even says that she doesn't have the necessary magic to seal this hole. Our protagonist says to leave it to him since he was prepared for this kind of thing. With that, he uses the 1,000 celestial planes transcendental light. He strikes a beam at that portal, intending to close that hole in space-time. The Venerable is surprised because it's actually working, and that crack slowly starts to block the passage of the monsters. However, using this magic had drained a lot of power from our protagonist, and he begins to weaken and faint. The gravitational pull of that portal was very strong and starts to suck our protagonist inside. The Venerable runs over and grabs his hand. She does this to try to save him. She was saving the guy she had always battled and wished to defeat at all costs. She remembers what they had talked about earlier. He had said that he always watched her and thought she was an evil being. However, during the battle he saw that she still had a good heart, so he decided to save her. He knew that she planned to bring back to life all the people she had eliminated. She had only done all that to attract the Emperor's attention. And also for saving that little boy who was crying, he realized she had a good heart and wasn't completely evil. So she was giving everything she had to save our protagonist. However, that portal was very strong and starts to suck him in. Using all the remaining energy, she asks what he's doing and why he's not trying to escape from there. He thanks her for saving that child again. He says something, but we don't know what it is. That makes the Venerable a little angry and she starts cursing him. At the last moment, the portal ends up closing and he is sealed on the other side. However, she had managed to hold on to a paper doll. That same one he always used. And remember that little doll well because it's going to be important later. She is very sad for not being able to rescue him and keeps thinking that her life is meaningless since she always wished to eliminate the Emperor, and now they kind of made peace. She ends up doing what she had planned from the beginning, which was to bring the people who had been killed back to life, and releases her power, resurrecting everyone. That consumed a lot of energy and she is left a little weak. Right after she releases that paper doll, saying goodbye to the Emperor. She even remembers the moment when he held her in his arms, and that scene was quite romantic. She can't stop thinking about it. The Emperor's look was the same as always, and now she was a little in love with him and would do anything to rescue him from that sinister portal. At night, Miko keeps having some nightmares and dreams about when she was a child, when her father had kidnapped an immortal to teach her a lesson. He keeps ordering the little girl to finish that guide, but she didn't want to do it since she didn't have a bad heart. However, her father ends up forcing her to do something she didn't want, and she cries a lot because she didn't want to hurt that man. During the dreams, she ends up having a vision of that same moment when she was trying to save our protagonist. She holds the Emperor's hands and starts screaming, saying that he needs to save himself. What he had said at that time, and we couldn't hear, was that he was thanking her for helping him. Thanks to her, he managed to discover something. With a smile on his face, he says that she is a good person, making the girl get angry and start shouting, saying that he is an idiot for sacrificing himself in such a dumb way. With that, she wakes up early the next day and can't stop thinking about the Emperor. The scene cuts and we see a meeting of the Phoenix group. Leader Sasha had survived and was holding a meeting to warn everyone about the imminent danger. She says that the Queen of Beasts ended up in their world and that the fight she had with that white-haired guy was overwhelming. The daughter of the Celestial Master of the Eternal Life sect, Aang Tanel, asks Sasha what they should do, since they are in great danger.
The master of the immortal clan, Yoshi, the Sant Yoshi Su, asks if she has ever heard of the immortal sword technique. Everyone there starts giving opinions about what they should do to save the immortal world, since they imagine that several beings ended up in their world. Each one gives a crazier idea than the other. Alice from the Zal family asks Sasha, calling her Grandma Sasha, if she gathered all those people just to keep complaining. An old lady from the ancient clan of the Great White Cloud Temple, Monk Bayu, tells Alice not to say such rude words. They say that only one person there would be able to stop the venerable demon, a person chosen by the gifts of the gods. Alice wonders what that has to do with the battle, and they end up revealing something to her. They say that in the past the immortal world collapsed and the tears of heaven took over this world. A seal had been broken and the powers of the gods had merged into Alice. She is quite shocked to learn this. She was the daughter of the destiny of the sky. Only she would have enough power to defeat the venerable demon and bring balance to the world of cultivators. However, she needed a partner to cultivate with her. If she kept training alone without a partner, she wouldn't be able to unlock her maximum power. She asks Sasha if this is true, and Grandma says yes, making Alice tremble in fear. Several clan leaders start proposing that she marry the younger boys from their clans. They do this because they want to have the Zal group as an ally, which is one of the 3 most powerful families. That blue-haired boy keeps saying she should marry his younger brother. The girl already gets all sad because they're trying to find a partner for her, and she doesn't want to get married anytime soon. But there was no escape, guys. She needed to find a new partner since the fate of the world was on her shoulders, and she would have to deal with it. The scene changes and we see Miko in a flower shop. That frog guy was there. He was a spy and was finding out everything the Phoenix group was planning. He tells Miko that they are planning to find a fiancé for Alice, since she is the chosen one of the gods, and only she could defeat the venerable demon. Miko already knew all about this and was now going to prepare to stop the Phoenix group. He also says that these people decided to hold a competition at school to see who was the most handsome guy, since the cultivator needed to have a very handsome fiancé. Only then would she be able to unlock her maximum power. Sounds pretty convenient, right guys? They are going to hold a competition at school to see who the most handsome guy is, to marry him off to Alice, kind of by force. The venerable demon doesn't really understand why humans act this way and wonders if their plan makes any sense. She convinces herself that she has no ally and that the emperor is not her ally, even though they became friends for a short time.
She says this, but she's a little unconcerned about him, since she believes he's trapped in that alternate world. Since she had used a lot of her power, she was a little weak and would need more time to fully recover her strength again. That frog guy leaves, and she goes to the flower shop owner saying she chose that little vase. The scene cuts, and we see the little fox talking to our protagonist. Yeah guys, Lowen wasn't trapped in that alternate universe. He managed to escape thanks to that paper doll. Now he was meditating to recover his energy. He tells the little fox that he was curious, that he managed to escape because he placed himself inside that paper doll. He did this so the venerable demon would think he was imprisoned in another universe, because only then could he protect the human world, and later defeat her. He knew she wasn't truly evil. However, he was still a bit suspicious, since the girl was very unpredictable and could act crazy at any moment. Since he had used his maximum power in that battle, he lost part of his energy and could no longer return to his emperor form. So he would have to keep living as Lowen for a while longer. The next day, he goes to school and starts playing a game during recess with Miko. She was feeling guilty because she thought Lowen had been kidnapped because of her. Remember that she doesn't know he is the emperor, and he also doesn't know that she is the venerable demon. That's because when they are transformed, they look completely different. Feeling guilty, she ends up letting him win. But he kept teasing her, and the girl was a little surprised because she didn't think he would be so playful like that. Lowen kept joking, and she got really annoyed, saying she wouldn't let him win if she had known he was going to make fun of her. When he's going back to class, he sees Julia coming towards him. She asks if he knows about the beauty contest that's going to happen next week and wants to know why he hasn't signed up yet. He didn't even really know what that was. And she starts imagining that he's acting all proud just because he's good looking. He thinks that if he signed up and won, maybe she would get closer to him. So she starts planning to put his name in the contest without him knowing. If Julia found out that whoever won would have to marry Alice, she wouldn't do that, since she also likes him. Later at home, Alice is looking on the computer to see how the votes are going. She sees that the frog guy is in first place, and right after comes Lowen, with practically tied scores. Just imagine our protagonist married to this little blonde bombshell. The girls at school keep talking about the ranking of the most handsome students and seemed like real fangirls. They even say that the frog guy is the most handsome in the school and that he also knows how to play the guitar. I don't know where these girls got the idea that this guy is handsome. He's uglier than fighting with his brother over the side dish. Julia keeps saying that her friends have no shame, but her friend replies that Julia isn't exactly a saint either because she saved the video and even liked it. Another friend says that wasn't all. Julia downloaded the video to watch at night and was just pretending not to like the frog guy. These girls are truly shameless. In her defense, Julia says she only did it to analyze the competitors, but wasn't interested in any of them. Her friend teases her to just admit she likes Loan and the frog guy. Then Julia starts yelling because she couldn't handle the pressure and admits that they're both very handsome. And that Loan is a cutie. Our hero's cousin, along with his fancy friend, complained that the girls are very superficial. He was really pissed because he didn't make the top 3, even though he tried hard in the contest. The frog guy got first place, and our hero was second. But there were still a few days left for voting. The fancy kid starts cursing his cousin, full of envy, and even says the frog guy isn't that handsome to have gotten first place. He thinks there's some trickery involved. The scene cuts to the frog guy surrounded by girls, looking like he was more popular than Loan. But what he really wanted was to get Alice's attention. As we know, he wants to be with her to mess up her cultivation. All on orders from the venerable demon. Alice wonders if this guy even knows the reason for the contest, and asks herself why he wants to win so badly. The guy really seemed to be using some tactic to make the girls fall for him. At that moment, she hears his voice. He had brought some cookies to please her, but Alice was hopelessly in love with our hero and didn't want to admit it. She keeps telling this kid he's disgusting. At that moment, he comments that the power of the celestial demon voice didn't work on Loan. Basically, the guy was casting a spell on the girls so they would fall in love and he'd win the votes. I knew that guy was playing dirty. No way. The girls in this world are crazy, but not crazy enough to think this guy is handsome. The guy is damn ugly. Alice goes to lunch and gets mad because this guy, who was into her, seems really boring. She thinks he couldn't be just any partner to be with her, because that would expose the Phoenix group. However, he was also on the list of candidates chosen by her grandma. She already suspected this frog guy was part of the demonic group. And she wonders if by any chance, the Phoenix group would be willing to join forces with this enemy group for a greater good. To defeat the venerable demon, and also the emperor. The guys thought the emperor was against them. We can already see that modern cultivation understanding is very low, because they didn't even really know the emperor's role. At that moment, Loan appears walking down the hall, and Alice quickly turns around because she's interested in him. Her friend asks why the girl doesn't go talk to our hero since he was alone, and that was something pretty rare to happen. Our heroine gets mad and slaps her hands on the table, saying she's not that kind of girl. Loan and I are just friends. That's right, just friends, she says. But when she says that, she gets a little embarrassed because it seemed like she was lying. At that moment, she remembers all the interactions she's had with him. Him punching her in the stomach, hitching a ride on his motorcycle, and even that time she bandaged his leg and ended up seeing his abs. All those memories were precious to her. Her friend asks if that's really all she wants to be to Loan. Shameless Alice even gets a nosebleed, and you already know what that means, right guys? That girl was pretty forward. She puts some tissues in her nose and runs angrily down the hall. People wonder why she was acting like that. It happens because she didn't know how to handle her feelings for Loan. And she was also mad because the photos he submitted to the contest weren't very good, and that's why the frog guy was in first place. Besides that, he had a magical charm in his voice. Now that she knew this ugly guy was plotting something to get her, she would have to stop him no matter what. So her wish was to hire a professional photographer to take some photos of Loan, so he would win the contest, and she could be with him. She proposes this to our hero, but he immediately refuses. He even says that if she doesn't have anything better to do, she should get a part-time job and stop bothering him. He says every time she comes to bother him, it's for something unpleasant. All these comments hit Alice like punches in the stomach. He finishes by saying that, above all, he was recently kidnapped and couldn't trust any girl. That makes her very sad because she feels guilty. She had promised to protect him and still wasn't able to do it. Later, she goes to a gym to take out all her frustrations. She was very angry because she promised to protect him, but he was kidnapped without her being able to do anything. The girl punches the punching bag several times and even starts crying, saying she ruined everything with him and now won't have a chance to be with her beloved. Yeah guys, she already started admitting she really likes him. And I confess to you that I'm starting to prefer our dear badass chubby guy along with Alice. But keep watching because a lot more crazy stuff is still going to happen in this video. A girl shows up at the gym, and the receptionist says Miss Alice reserved the entire gym just for her. But this other woman was a personal trainer who liked to challenge the students just to feel stronger. And on this very day, she had the terrible idea to challenge our dear blonde girl from Chan. She went over there and started bothering Alice. The woman seemed very full of herself and started provoking Alice, calling her out for a duel. At that moment, Alice wasn't very patient and ended up throwing the bully out of the gym. Right after, she jumped down too. The fighter fell to the ground all smashed up, dying of fear. We see she was wearing a mask to cover her face. Without wasting time, Alice ripped off her mask to find out who this troublemaker was. The woman had a scar on her face, which made everyone think she just wanted to hide that wound. With that, our heroine finished her off with a good punch to the bully's face. At that moment, the police arrived saying they received a report of a fight. When they got there, they discovered the person who got beaten was a criminal who had taken advantage of several men, let's just say, and who had a high reward for her capture. With that, our heroine was applauded by everyone around, like a true justice warrior. She even appeared on a TV show to receive a cash prize. And after that, several newspapers and channels did interviews with her. It seemed like in the last few days, Alice's luck had turned in her favor. A lot of good things were happening. That's why her friend at school says she should take advantage of this lucky streak and ask Loan out. She replies that she really was very lucky, because whenever she was doing well, she earned money and several guys were after her. Even her grandmother kept saying she should find a partner. So it was something she had been thinking about for real. She even admits she's going to take advantage of this lucky streak to ask our hero out. That made the girls there spit out the juice they were drinking, because no one imagined Alice would really propose that. Julia said that's nonsense, since the frog guy was in first place and she should stay with him, as he was the most handsome in school. Alice tells her not to worry about that, because she decided to be with the boy she really likes. And now she was admitting it to everyone. Guys, she finally admits she likes the badass chubby guy. If you prefer the blonde from Chan to be with our hero instead of Miko, comment below for us. Go Alice, let's see who everyone prefers. Julia tries to convince Alice not to be with Loan, while the blonde from Chan asks her friends for advice. She says she will charge for the tips, and they start arguing about the price. They agree that if Julia gives some really important info, Alice will pay about 500,000. But it has to be information that really helps. Julia says her info is reliable and will help a lot. She even pulls out of her clothes a list with several essential items. She puts the list on the table and says that info has been collected for a long time and it's very valuable. Meanwhile, our heroine tries to read and understand everything that was written. However, among all the info Julia knew, there was one thing she wasn't sure about. That info was about where Loan went during recess. He always grabbed food and ran off somewhere. Alice wonders if that was really what Julia didn't know, and Julia replies, "No wait, I'm still telling the story." Actually, what she didn't know was why Loan went to the roof every day to play chess with that girl there. She goes there every day. That drives Alice crazy because she had no idea. She starts asking who Loan is playing chess with. Julia points exactly to that girl, saying she was on the other side grabbing food. When Alice turns around, already with fire in her eyes, she sees on the other side, Miko. That leaves Alice devastated. It seems Alice already knew that girl from somewhere else. At that moment, the creamy girl's eyes meet the blonde's, and they start exchanging sharp words in the air. We see they really had a past, and that shows in a flashback. Miko is talking to Alice, saying her friend was dragged away. And that happened before the venerable demon came to this body. But remember that when they come to this world, they keep the memories of the body's former owner. So the venerable demon in Miko's body still remembers the whole story involving Alice. The blonde gets upset, knowing her old friend is now her rival, and that she's meeting with Loan. Shortly after that, the venerable demon goes to the school rooftop to play chess with Loan. The weather was a bit cold, and it even started snowing. Our hero says he doesn't want to play in these weather conditions. The girl responds saying he's scared. He says they'll both end up sick and catch a cold if they stay in that snowstorm. He even teases, saying he's afraid some certain girl might try to take advantage of him. That makes Miko blush with embarrassment. He says he doesn't trust any girl because they're all shameless. Miko throws her uniform and says if he's cold, he can use her jacket to keep warm. He pulls the uniform away from his face and notices she smells really good. The girl looks a little nervous. Thinking about it guys, Miko is really cute too, so it's hard to know who he should be with. Miko keeps staring at her, and Miko turns away as if she doesn't care. But we can see she's also liking our protagonist. I'm sure you'd like to be a lucky guy like that, so go ahead and leave your like. So the system god notices you and sends you many waifus. Our hero says he won't use her jacket, and that makes the girl nervous, saying he's being very picky. He then says he'll play with her in the snow just this once, and that he'll win so she stops talking nonsense about him. She even remembers that men in this world are quite different from the world she came from, because here they're more sensitive. It would be rude to invite one of them to play chess on a rainy day. He puts on her jacket and says it fits well, just a bit tight because he's bigger and has stronger arms. That makes shameless Miko all red. She starts imagining him wearing her clothes, her head starts to heat up, and she really thinks inappropriate things. He says it's raining and they need to hide from the rain.
That makes the girl nervous, because she says she's not a spoiled little girl to run away from the rain. So he just stands up and says he's going home because he's tired of getting cold rain on his back. But she keeps telling him to wait. She says she really wanted to play with him and keeps insisting. And since he accepted, he should finish the match. She seemed really cute and he didn't want to refuse such a request. So she extends her hand, points to the board and asks again for him to play a match until the end. He then asks why she's making that strange seductive face, and that makes the girl even angrier. Finally she gives up, saying to let it go and that she won't force him to play with her. The girl was really pretty, and our hero's heart slowly begins to soften. He was all tough just seconds before, but after seeing that cute little face of hers, his heart melted. He sits down in the rain and says now it's his turn to play. She blushes and sits down too, to restart the match. From the day she was born until she became Empress of the Demon Race, she had spent tens of thousands of years in battle. All her subordinates feared her because she was an extremely powerful and ruthless being. She never felt the need for affection, and all she wanted was to dominate the world. Love was something she had never felt before, but since she was sent to this world, she might be starting to feel something similar. She was even allowing herself to feel what humans call love, and now she found someone very similar to her. That's why she was going to let her feelings overflow. Little does this girl know that Loan is her sworn enemy, with whom she has battled for thousands of years.
Later, our hero arrives home soaking wet, and the little fox goes to him with news about the item sales. He says that of all the objects listed, 8 have already been sold. Our hero thinks that's great news. He also tells the little fox to hide those items because it would be very dangerous if someone found out. At that moment, his aunt appears saying there's a beautiful girl in the living room, from the Zhao family, and that she's from one of the richest families in the country. So he should go down and talk to her. This aunt was quite opportunistic. Our hero ends up slamming the door in her face, saying he's not going down there and that he's going to take a shower. Meanwhile, the grumpy aunt says it would be a great opportunity for her to see her nephew married to a girl from the Zhao family, and that she will do everything to make that happen. Then the aunt goes to the living room and tries to stall Alice, saying her nephew is just taking a shower and will be down soon. She keeps saying men always try to look more handsome for girls. This world is really upside down, guys. I don't know about you, but I'd much rather the world was like that. Imagine not having to chase any girl, and when you open your phone there are like 500 girls asking you out. Alice says she'll wait and stays there waiting. The aunt is the biggest schemer, and already says she's going out with her husband and son, leaving Alice alone with the nephew. That makes the girl very embarrassed. She already knew they were interested in her money, but Alice doesn't care about that. She just wants to be with Lone. She starts to get a little anxious and decides to go to the bathroom to check what he's doing. Sneaky, right guys? She walks around the house, looking for Lone, and before she knows it, runs into him coming out of the shower. All muscular, really badass. Alice even gets weak in the knees. She doesn't really know how to behave. Right there in front of her was our badass chubby guy, who isn't even chubby anymore, right? Shameless Alice can't stop staring at him for a single second, and her nose even starts bleeding. You already know what that means, right? She gives an excuse saying she just really needed to go to the bathroom, and had no intention of running into him there. Of course he doesn't really believe her lies. The girl keeps making excuses. Lone stands right in front of her and keeps staring, making her even more embarrassed, even causing a tomato juice to drip on his jacket. He sees this scene and remembers that the men from the cultivation village where he ruled also acted like this around girls. When he gets very close to her, she says it's too soon for them to do that. The girl was thinking he was really interested in her and wanted to do other little things, so to speak. With that, our hero's virginity ends up giving the blonde from Chan a strike, throwing her away. That was the male self-defense move. But I like to call it the martial art of fussiness. Our hero is really picky here, guys, and I'm getting mad at him. Just grab those girls and stop being so picky, you greasy chubby guy. A little later they meet in the room to clear up this misunderstanding. She apologizes for not being able to protect him. She apologizes for not protecting him from being kidnapped by Yara. But our hero says it's not her fault. She says she even bought some presents, hoping he'd forgive her for the hole in the wall, and that everything was settled. Soon after he says it's late, and he's going to rest. So she can leave. The guy mistreats the girl. Seriously guys, I want to jump inside this manga and give him a beating. She leaves all sad and stays outside, very downcast, thinking about the harsh words he said to her. She was suffering a lot because she liked him, and he always mistreated her. She even starts remembering all the moments they shared. She couldn't give up so easily on the boy she loved, and with that she goes back inside and calls his name. She says clearly, I want you to be my boyfriend. He doesn't believe she's saying that to him. And suddenly, very shy, she continues saying she doesn't want to take advantage of him, because she knows he was kidnapped and is still recovering. But she really likes him for real. With a face as red as a bell pepper, she says she loves taking him for motorcycle rides. And also likes the smell he leaves on the helmet, likes playing video games with him, and also likes his self-defense attacks. She was literally saying she liked getting hit, and also says she likes when he misunderstands her, thinking she's saying shameless things. Unlike other guys, he has a different view of the world and seemed trustworthy. You probably think I'm worthless, except for fighting, causing trouble, and flirting with other boys, but I'll try to be your ideal type, and then I'll be good enough for you. After that love declaration, it would be impossible for this guy to refuse. I promise you, if he refuses her dating proposal here, I'll stop summarizing this work right now. He gets up and goes to her, but the girl says she's not done yet. I don't know what they'll do, nor if they'll take you away from me. But I, Alice, am a pure and direct girl. If I like someone, I'll say it without thinking. I'll never give up, she says loudly. Our hero feels a strange feeling, as if butterflies were fluttering in his stomach. He says he's known her less than 6 months, and doesn't understand how, in such a short time, she's already liking him that much. Then he asks if love for her is something so superficial. But before she could say anything, he says it's okay. If she wants to go after him, she can do that. That wasn't a yes nor a no. And you'll see why he acts that way. He wasn't being picky, guys. Everything he was doing was because of love. Keep watching and you'll understand. And I agree with our hero, guys. The guy was a real badass Sigma in this scene. Alice leaves celebrating, saying she'll pick him up tomorrow for a photo shoot, so she can post it in that competition and he can become the champion. He watches her from the window, and the girl celebrates a lot, even though that wasn't exactly a yes to dating. Later, the little fox asks if our hero is sleeping, because he wants to say something. He asks why our hero doesn't tell Alice the truth. And he reveals it's because she is the daughter of heaven, and even if he were strong enough, he couldn't stop her. That happens because the daughters of heaven are helped by the gods, and he wants her to be his ally to defeat the venerable demon, and also that demonic sword. The little fox asks if love isn't just a matter of luck, but our hero says luck isn't enough. He means that for her to gain enough power to defeat the evil threat of the venerable demon, Alice needs to truly win his heart. And that was something no one had managed to do in over 10,000 years. That makes us understand, guys, that he was in love with someone and was still trapped in that love. That's why he didn't pay attention to any other girl. This guy here was a real badass Sigma. Keep watching so you can see the end of this story, because it's really exciting. The next day he goes to a photo session to do several poses, and we see that our hero really looks like a heartthrob, even looking like a K-pop model. However, none of those photos manage to capture his essence. Alice keeps telling her boyfriend to put on the uniform, because that way he would look even more handsome. After sending the new images, the Phoenix group starts commenting on the voting results. And in first place was Loan, who had surpassed the frog guy. The grandmother announces the result, and says it will affect the Phoenix group. From now on he would be Alice's boyfriend. The grandmother also asks Alice to bring those photos of her boyfriend, making the girl angry. With that, they organize an event to introduce her to the other sect members. The girl named Shina gets really jealous because she also seemed to like our hero. She keeps saying she will steal this boy from Alice because she didn't deserve to have such a handsome guy. And we see that this girl is truly crazy. She keeps saying she will do everything so that this handsome student stays with her. She seemed to like younger boys and even says inappropriate things. Finally, the day of the presentation arrived, and the Phoenix sect leaders were all gathered. They had agreed to come in casual clothes, but the Skypath Master brought her sword. She said she would never part with her blades. Everyone there started gossiping about the other clans. Typical gossip, really. It seemed that in this world some things hadn't changed, because women were still gossiping. Just kidding, guys, don't cancel me since the main gossiper was a man. They said they needed to take care of Alice and teach the right path to the daughter of heaven. However, Shina was very jealous of Alice and said she would get that handsome boy just for herself. And just as they spoke of the blessed one, she appeared together with her boyfriend. Shina became even more enchanted to see him face to face and said he was a cute little thing. He sat with those clan leaders and already knew exactly what those people wanted. All he wanted was to find some clue about the venerable demon. Remembering that the people with the venerable demon still thought the emperor was trapped in another dimension, when in fact he had escaped using a paper clone. There he had asked him to come to the meeting with some friends and promised it would be only once. As soon as he arrived, all the women looked at him with shameless faces. The guy couldn't stay a single minute in peace. He knew he couldn't trust those people, as they seemed like opportunists wanting to manipulate Alice. She introduced her boyfriend to everyone, and he said they were not a couple at all. He even said he only came to eat and didn't want to get all that attention.
Meanwhile, she made a cute face. That shameless Shina appeared and started flirting with him, saying he was very handsome and would give her great children. And guys, on top of that, she offered our hero the love tea. She put some in the bowl, saying he should try it, since it's custom to offer tea to those who sit at the table with them. Alice, who's no fool, already sensed something fishy. She saw Shina putting something into the drink. It looked like some kind of poison, falling from her nail. Alice started yelling, saying she was putting something in the tea. However, the girl was clever and played dumb, saying that girl just wanted to ruin her reputation because she was jealous of Loan. She also said she didn't put anything strange in the drink. If Alice could prove she did something wrong, she'd offer her head as punishment. But if the opposite happened, and it was proven she did nothing to the tea, they should lend that handsome man to her for a few days. At that moment, we were blessed with a divine art where the two stared at each other. That image alone deserves your like and a comment. Seriously guys, what a sight, my friends. The two kept staring, and someone pointed at her saying that woman wanted to poison the boyfriend to drink. But Shina said it was up to him to decide whether to drink or not. There they said she was a trickster trying to steal the boyfriend. But the shameless one said she was just acting like a jealous crazy woman. At that moment, our hero knew it might be a test from the Phoenix group. She kept offering the tea to him. Using his cultivation power, he realized there was something wrong with the drink. Probably it was one of the 18 types of poisonous parasites, which are extremely difficult to identify. The girl really had a skill with poisons, as even the emperor couldn't discover what was mixed in there. Then he looked at the other leaders and saw they were serious. It seemed everyone was trying to judge him to see if he was a cultivator or not. If he drank it, nothing would happen because his body was powerful and the poison wasn't strong enough. But if he didn't drink, it would mean he could see the poison's composition and everyone would confirm he was a specialist and cultivator. Either way, he was in a dead end. But luckily for him, Alice took the cup with the tea and drank it. Guys, the sight here is heavenly. He was totally surprised because she saved him at the last moment, even unintentionally. The girl made an unfriendly gesture, saying the boyfriend was hers and that she shouldn't interfere in their lives. The leaders of the Phoenix group tell the girls to stop fighting, since there was a lot to discuss. The guy then says he brought a rat that can measure a person's cultivation and spiritual energy. The rat was going to find someone with pure energy to test Loan. They say this quietly so Alice and our hero don't hear. However, when the rat observes the divine energy of the emperor, it starts acting crazy, scaring everyone there. Shina is surprised, and the rat runs wildly trying to catch our hero because he had divine energy. But when Loan notices the little rat, he flicks it away, making it fly off. He even says he was eating and didn't want anyone to disturb his lunch. With that, he simply gets up and leaves, as it seemed Alice's friends didn't like him much. The girl runs after him, telling him to wait. Everyone there comments on how strange that was. It seems Loan's body has yang energy in its purest form, because the rat should have acted timidly, not running wild like it did. With that, the old man even starts crying, saying that boy has a perfect body. He tells Shina that Alice got a boyfriend with an extremely rare lineage, and it makes sense she's jealous of the girl. However, they should keep this information secret, because the demon clan group couldn't know. Still, Shina jokes, saying that's impossible, and the rat must just be crazy. On the motorcycle, she takes him back home, and our hero asks if there was something strange in that tea, since she drank it and nothing happened. They say Shina wouldn't dare do anything against her. But at that moment, she loses attention, and a dog runs in front of the motorcycle. Trying to swerve, she falls on top of our hero, in a quite romantic situation, to say the least. She stays on top of him and looks straight into his eyes. He takes off his helmet and says he's fine. However, quite unexpectedly, she makes a snowball and throws it at his face. One of the parasite poisons caused redness on the face, extreme heat, and childish behavior. That was exactly what was happening to her. And to make it worse, the poison also made her act a bit spicy, so to speak. With that, he ends up agreeing to fight her in a snowball fight. We go back to a flashback thousands of years ago, when our hero was still an apprentice cultivator. He wasn't emperor yet and was on a date with a beautiful girl who looked a lot like Alice. The girl says he shouldn't train so much and needs more time for leisure, since he only thought about getting stronger. She knew the situation with the demons was getting worrying and that there was a risk they would take over the world. But still, he couldn't spend all his time training. She said she waited for him every day to spend time together. However, our hero only thought about training and training. In response, he says everyone says he has potential to become emperor. She asks how long it would take for him to reach immortality and live with the heavens, and if it would be worth it for him to become emperor and defeat the demons again. She asks if it would be about 1,000 or 10,000 years. She knew that if he reached the immortal stage, she would die and he would keep living. She wouldn't even spend a small fraction of his lifetime and would be just another memory. She even said the end of the world would come before that, and he couldn't marry a mere mortal like her. So she asks if he could dedicate half an hour a day to play in the snow with her. After venting, she apologizes, knowing she was pressuring him too much. Finally, she tells him to keep training, believing he would one day become a hero and end the demon's evil. She says if they meet again in another life, she will keep bothering him to enjoy the snow with her. Guys, it was exactly because of this girl that he didn't pay attention to other women. Our hero was madly in love with her, and since Alice looked a little like that girl, his heart was a bit soft. But one day the demonic sword attacked the village where they lived and began destroying everything. The girl was lying on the ground. He said he would eliminate everyone in the village and went to attack the poor girl. But to our surprise, our hero appeared to save the day and fought the demonic sword. He wasn't emperor yet, but managed to save his beloved. What he didn't expect was that the sword would keep attacking with overwhelming power. It threw our hero far away. His beloved was away from his arms. The sword grabbed his leg and said it was game over, that it would eliminate all the villagers because from there the emperor would rise.
Our hero watched that whole scene, where his beloved was brutally wounded right before his eyes. The love of his life left right in front of him, and he couldn't do anything. That scene was very traumatic. The demonic sword mocked the situation, and even threw the girl against the walls. However, the venerable demon summoned the sword to the Castle of Darkness. The sword said that day had been the boy's lucky day, otherwise he too would have been defeated. With that, he goes to the girl to check how she is. At that moment, we learn the real name of our hero. His name is Motu. She thanks him for coming back. However, due to the injuries, she can no longer see and asks if it really is him there. He confirms that it is and asks her not to say anything more, as it will use all his energy, but she knows she won't survive the wounds. She asks him to listen to her last words. She says that behind the bamboo forest lies the path of the crest of fallacy. This time, he will have to follow the path alone. She promises that if she meets him in another life, they will finally be together. With that, she takes her last breath, making our hero cry a lot. The scene cuts to that same day, where the daughter of the venerable demon complains to her father about the demonic sword having decimated an entire village. She was not yet the queen of demons. The father says there is nothing wrong with the sword having done that, as it was just entertainment. We see that she did not agree with that evil feeling of their race. She was a good girl. That is why the father punishes her, saying she does not deserve to be the future venerable demon because she is weak and does not understand the essence of their race. After that, our hero follows the path that his beloved had indicated. He remembers that she always said he would train so much that his hair would turn white, and that was exactly what was happening. His hair was turning gray. He remembers her last words where she said that if she were reborn she would be with him forever. Still crying, he promises to wait for her until that day comes. He says he will not fall in love again, and every time he closes his eyes, he remembers her angelic face. Her face was extremely similar to Alice's, who was now in front of his eyes. It was explained why the blonde girl from Chan managed to touch our protagonist's heart. However, he said this is not life after death, nor reincarnation, nor was it that Ing. However, he did not want to keep regretting, nor make the same mistakes of the past life. The scene changes and we see that Alice was on the computer, watching some news. She notices that her friend had climbed to the top of a building and jumped off. The girl is very shocked by that message. Shortly after, she receives another message saying that all her team's games would be cancelled. Actually, guys, it was a flashback. We see that the fight involved Miko, another girl who was her teammate. Miko appears and starts choking Alice, saying it was all her fault that the friend jumped off the building. They start fighting, blaming poor Alice. It looked more like a horror movie than a flashback. Alice appears on the television, also blaming our heroine. She says that Alice caused those students' deaths. That to find peace she must repent for her sins. In the end, with a very terrifying expression, she says she hopes Alice can find answers. At that moment, Alice slams her hand on the table and shouts for the girl to wait. When she realizes she is alone in a room. This mess seems very confusing, but it will be revealed to us in the future what really happened between her and Miko, and why they didn't get along. Her friend appears, calling her to lunch. She asks if she knows where Lovan is. The girl says he is playing chess with that Miko. That makes Alice furious. She runs to confront the girl. She couldn't believe that her old friend was interested in her boyfriend, and she had never heard that Miko liked to play chess. When she arrives at the terrace, she is surprised by the scene. Until then, she didn't believe that was true. They were there playing a board game. She starts throwing a tantrum. Miko, everyone at school knows I like Lovan, but it seems you don't know or haven't realized. We've been playing on the terrace every day since we met, and everyone at school knows it, but it seems you don't know or haven't realized. Now a fight will start between these two to see who gets our hero. And if you like either of them, comment below for us, guys, because I want to know who is winning the subscribers vote. That makes Alice a little angry. She says that since she is there, she intends to ask Miko something. It was something related to her older sister. Miko says it makes no sense for her to ask that now, as she no longer has anything to do with Alice. She apologizes for what happened some time ago, says that her sister is still upset because Alice didn't show up at that game, that she missed it because she was sick. Miko becomes extremely furious. She gets close to Alice and says she doesn't know anything. Alice becomes curious and asks what she doesn't know. Miko replies that if she really cares about her sister, she should investigate on her own, that it wouldn't be hard to discover the truth given Alice's current strength. Alice says that if Miko is making fun of her, she will regret it. At that moment, she touches our hero's shoulder and calls him to leave. Says she herself could play chess with him. However, at that moment, Miko grabs Alice's arm, says she shouldn't try to control the boy, as he should act as he wishes. Besides, that game on the terrace was something sacred, and she shouldn't interfere. Alice says she is Loven's girlfriend, so she shouldn't interfere in the couple's life. But that was humiliating for our hero. Two girls trying to control his life. He simply gets up and says he doesn't want to keep listening to that nonsense. Alice keeps trying to control the boy. He says Alice is being very childish, making her a little embarrassed. She didn't know why she was acting like that. Loven was in a way making her act like a little kid again. Miko grabs Alice's arm, making her nervous. She asks why the girl is stuck to her like a tick. Miko says nothing and keeps squeezing her arm. The blonde says she already repeated several times that she likes Loven, that no one should interfere in their relationship. She asks if Miko is trying to steal him from her. She gets extremely furious. Meanwhile, Miko defends herself, saying she is tired of Alice harassing our hero. The two exchange insults. It seems the fight will start any moment. On one side, Miko thinks this insolent human is acting too arrogant to confront her. On the other, Alice thinks this normal human, who is not a cultivator, is trying to challenge her. With that, the blonde begins releasing her yin-yang energy, creating a huge whirlwind. But it was as if a rock held her arm. That was the power of the venerable demon. No matter how much energy Alice had, she didn't have enough strength to resist the venerable's magical pressure. Because of that, she goes into shock. She couldn't believe a simple girl who until recently was her friend had immeasurable power. The look Miko gives makes Alice's legs go weak. Even our hero doesn't fully understand what is happening. Loven begins to suspect Miko is not a very normal person. Later, when Alice is leaving, she thinks about Miko. She wonders if she is a cultivator. She had known this girl for a long time and never had any clue she had divine power. But how she acted just now showed she had a very high cultivation level. While riding her motorcycle, she confidently says there was a camera near the place where they practiced video games. She wanted to know about footage from a few months ago, when that incident with Awakening happened. The guy ends up sending her the messages. She stops the motorcycle to watch the video. She wanted to know what happened for her friend to throw herself off the building. Now that she was a daughter of heaven, she had a higher cultivation level. With that, she could solve this mystery. If there was a demon influencing things and she was weak, she couldn't do anything. However, when she watches the video, she sees Sheena walking with her friend. That Sheena seemed to be behind everything. Any bad news that happened, that girl was involved. She even wonders if Sheena is attacking mortals again. It seems she already has a history of doing that. However, our heroine didn't know the motivations of that girl. The scene changes to a bit later, where we see Sheena at a club, having fun with friends. She thinks highly of herself, guys, and starts dropping some weird lines to the guys. She was trying to gather information about Loven. Everyone there said he was a normal person, but that didn't make sense to her. Why would that little rat have run wildly towards him? That indicated he had a perfect yin-yang cultivation body. At that moment, Alice arrives, breaking everything. She came to look for Sheena. One of the guys with her asks Alice to stay calm, but she goes immediately to Sheena and says she wants to ask something. The shameless girl makes some bad jokes, but our heroine doesn't care and tells everyone to leave as fast as possible. She wants to talk alone with Sheena. Alice asks what the hell Sheena was doing with Waking the day she fell from the building. The girl says she doesn't know anything about what Alice is talking about. Oh yeah? So you don't know? I'll refresh your memory. We see a flashback to when Alice, Mao, and Waking played on the video game team. They had reached the semi-finals of the championship. The team they beat was called Skygate. It was precisely the team led by Sheena. That's why Alice believes this girl has something to do with her friend's death. However, Sheena jokes and that makes Alice very nervous. They start arguing. Sheena keeps mocking and even laughs at her. In response, Sheena says she was a bit bored back then and decided to form a team just for fun. They had no intention of reaching the finals, just making it to the semi-finals was enough for them. In the end, she didn't know anything about the other team, so there was no way she could have caused any problem for Waking.
If she had known it was Alice competing, she wouldn't have let her win, implying she just played for fun. The guy who had been following the conversation so far implies Sheena would have won if she could. Finally, Sheena insists she doesn't know the girl from the footage. Says it was just a coincidence, she passed by her in front of that building. Alice slaps the phone, throwing it on the floor. Says coincidence is a lie. They entered the building together and then left like nothing happened. Right after, Waking went back into the building and jumped from the top. So don't be so shameless. Sheena tells Alice not to be shameless, and not to accuse anyone without proof. Such an accusation is very serious. The two start challenging each other, calling for a fight. But since Alice is daughter of the heavens, she couldn't go fighting everyone. She ends up taking out her anger on a trash can. The guy beside her holds her so she doesn't fight. Our blonde says she will let Sheena live today. She has an appointment later. She also feels a lot of gratitude for the girl's father, who was a very honorable master. However, if she knew Sheena was involved, she would come back to finish her. When she leaves, the boy hints that Sheena was lying. He asks if that whole story was really true. That makes Alice a little angry. But as they leave, Sheena takes out her phone and calls someone. She says the surveillance video from that building leaked. So it's time to eliminate the culprit. She admits she is very jealous of Alice. But she wouldn't harm her because of her grandmother. That could destabilize the Phoenix group. But she needs to fulfill some goals. If all goes well, she could finally defeat RAL and put an end to this group causing discord in the cultivator's world. We see that this girl is a clandestine. She has some pretty wrong plans, to say the least. The next day at school, our hero arrives at the cafeteria. The lunch lady congratulates him. She says she had the chance to cook a wonderful meal for him. That happened because Alice was buying some ingredients just to please him. That's because Yulia gave Alice that list. Or better, sold it, right? She said he liked fancy food. However, our hero says that's totally unnecessary. Just then, Alice shows up. She says the ingredients were sent from Antarctica. He should taste that magnificent flavor. She ends up convincing him to try the food. She had prepared an exclusive room for him at school, so he wouldn't stay on the terrace playing chess with Mako. She was very jealous, guys. However, our hero said she didn't need to do those things for him. But Alice grabs his arm and insists he not go with Mako. It was very important to her that he have no relation with that girl. She even makes an angelic face, trying to convince him. Our hero ends up agreeing and says he will stay with her. But at that moment, Mako appears calling him to play chess. Upstairs, Alice pushes in front, saying he won't go because he will go to the special room she prepared and play chess with her. Our boy, have you always been this annoying? Let Lovan do what he wants. Lovan didn't like to attract much attention. But that's exactly what was happening. All the students were there watching the mess. They said the girls were fighting because of him. That made the boy the most popular in school. Mako even says her only job is to annoy Lovan. Then the blonde runs off, yelling for the students to stop spying on them. She calls everyone nosy and gossipy. She admits she knows she made Mako suffer a lot. But she regrets all the bad things she did. No matter if she did something wrong in the past. However, she would never give Lovan to Mako. Mako defends herself, saying she doesn't want the boy. He is just a chess partner. As always, that makes Lovan uncomfortable. He says he will leave far from them. When Alice runs to try to stop him, Mako blocks her. Says she shouldn't cause more problems for the boy. There, it said that if Alice likes Lovan, she should admit it right now. Because that's what was showing. She also says Alice got close to him just to get revenge. Because she knew Alice had feelings for him. Besides that, Mako won't let him play chess with her again. With a red face, Mako says she doesn't like Lovan. They're just chess partners. With that, Alice accepts that the ex-friend is not in love with her crush. That they just really wanted to play chess in peace. However, Alice thinks you're no match for me. I can give everything to Lovan. Everything he wants I can give. And what about you? What can you offer him? Well, I can play chess with him. Alice tried to throw a power move at Mako. But she answered with a funny line. Alice gave up on arguing. On the terrace, Mako seems sad. She's playing alone up there. It seems she really liked our hero, guys. She says she spent years playing chess alone in the demon world. But this was the first time she felt lonely. She didn't know if she had weakened in this human body, or if she really liked someone. She kept thinking about that phrase from Alice about what she could give Lovan. She wasn't rich and couldn't offer anything compared to Alice. The only thing she could offer the boy was a chess game on the rooftop. She remembered that recently she regained all her venerable demon power. That's why she didn't feel heat or cold. And she realized she might be rude, inviting the boy to play chess every day on the terrace. He could be feeling very cold. She hadn't thought about that. Thinking about it, she blushes. She realizes she's worried about a mere mortal. She tries to convince herself the only thing she should care about is conquering the world. But thinking about it, she says she can give the whole world to Loven. She gets up motivated to do that. I told you guys, this girl is extremely in love. But she quickly remembers it's not that easy. That demonic sword had turned against her, and there was still the threat of the immortal emperor. In 1,000 years she'd never felt so distracted and anguished. She's worried about where Loven is. Did he really go to that room prepared by Alice? Since boys in this world were more sensitive, she worries he might be scared and hiding. She decides to take out her phone and send him a message. It wouldn't seem strange, since they are chess friends.
So she sends a message to our hero. He doesn't see the message. She decides to call immediately. As soon as he answers, she starts by saying she wants to talk to him, but he immediately apologizes. Says she is a good girl, but is sure she will find someone better than him. That completely breaks the girl, guys. She gets so frustrated that she throws the phone on the floor. Says he should listen first before talking and hanging up. I confess that at this moment I got kind of upset. I wanted him to give her a chance too, but she wasn't going to let it go. Says she will meet him and resolve everything face to face. She goes down the stairs trying to convince herself she has no romantic feelings for Loman. Says she's doing this just to clarify things, not to leave doubts. She sees Alice's friend, the one with blue hair, asks where Loman is. The girl has a brilliant idea. Says Loman is at the court playing basketball, that she should go there to find him. Hearing this, Miko finds it strange, doubts it since our hero didn't like that sport much. But she ends up believing it, says she will go there to check. Upon arriving, she looks for our hero everywhere, but doesn't find him anywhere. The only person she recognizes is Alice playing basketball. She was very good in scoring all the points in the game. At that moment, the venerable demon discovers the girl lied. It was all a prank. Since our hero wasn't there, she decides to leave. But some girls carrying a table catch her attention. At that moment, Alice asks what the hell Miko is doing there. Noticed, Miko asks the blonde if she knows where Loman is. In response, Alice says she imagined he was playing chess with her on the terrace. Since there was nothing else to solve there, the girl says she's leaving and won't waste her time in that stupid place. However, Alice ends up throwing a ball at her, and she catches it even without looking. You have something to tell me, right? Since you came here, why not play a little against me? Oh no, I think that's pretty boring. No thanks, Miko says a game where you have to throw the ball into a basket is for kids. She ends up throwing the ball backwards and still scores a three-pointer. Alice finds that an affront and challenges her to a duel. Well girl, if you beat me in this game, I'll let you play chess with Loman as much as you want. But if I win, you have to promise never to play with him again. Miko feels tempted, and as Alice keeps talking, she becomes even more challenged. It would be a huge humiliation to run from a challenge like that. Everyone around starts messaging on WhatsApp groups, calling the whole school to watch the challenge. Finally, Miko accepts. Alice asks if she won't put on a uniform to play, and Miko says she only changes clothes when the opponent is worthy. Those girls carrying the table pass through the middle of the court and drop a screw. The two ignore it and start the match. Alice warns that it's forbidden to use immortal powers, and if either uses them, they lose immediately. Miko tells her not to worry because she won't need to use even 1% of her abilities. So the battle begins. Miko hands the basketball to Alice, telling her to start the attack. Whoever scores first will be the winner. Alice runs to score, dribbling at high speed. She seemed really good, and everyone watching comments on her exceptional skill. But it was too easy. She had passed Miko, leaving her behind. At that moment, the ball under her control disappears. Looking back, she notices the ball is in Miko's hands, who stole it with extreme ease. To humiliate the blonde even more, she returns the ball and tells her to try again. Says she'll play with her until her last breath. I tell you guys, these girls are both stubborn. The battle continues intense. Alice tries to dribble again. Her speed is very high, and everyone starts cheering for the yellow lightning move, even joking with Naruto. When she was about to score and win, Miko jumps very high, snatching the ball from her hands. No matter what Alice tried, Miko was always better. She couldn't remember her friend having such an absurd skill. When they touch the ground, Miko asks if Alice wants to try again and hands her the ball. Alice would only win if she came up with a brilliant strategy. Otherwise, she'd keep getting humiliated in front of everyone. She knows if she charges like before, she'll lose the ball. So she starts to plan. She tries a direct shot. Miko jumps to block, but at that moment, Alice ducks and does a sharp dribble, making Miko look silly. She says the girl is very naive. When she's about to reach the basket and score, Miko jumps very high, trying to block with absurd force and speed. She really manages to reach her and hits her hand to block the attack. At that moment, Alice is thrown to the ground, falling like a sack of potatoes. Everyone there was rooting for Alice, but she had failed miserably. In response, Miko says that the blonde will never compare to her. She might have money and give Loman everything he wants but still wouldn't surpass her. After teasing Alice and telling her to give up, that only made the girl more nervous. She prepares to throw the ball right there. The ball moves at a surprising speed. Miko realizes that it's dangerous, and Alice could really win the challenge. They both start running. The ball hits the rim and bounces back up. That was a very famous basketball dribble. Miko knows that if she lets Alice get the ball, she will lose. Rushing to reach before her opponent, Miko steps on that screw, which greatly hinders her speed. Her foot hurts a lot, so she can't jump as high as usual. With that, Alice unleashes all her energy, making the basketball hoop explode. The blow was so strong that Miko was thrown to the ground, falling on all the glass shards. Since Alice used her cultivation power, she lost the challenge. Basically, it was all for nothing, guys. All injured, Miko says she will keep playing chess with Loman. The classmates who watched the match say Miko is amazing and are worried she might be seriously hurt. With enthusiasm, she says she only suffered minor scratches. But that was a lie, guys. She was badly injured. The boys say they will take her to the infirmary. She tries to resist a lot, but the boys say if she doesn't go, they will call an ambulance. She remembers that time she fell awkwardly with a bold, chubby guy on top of her and was hugely embarrassed with the ambulance picking her up at school. With that, she agrees to be taken to the infirmary. Loman was in the classroom, eating a shrimp. A classmate arrives saying the girls were fighting because of him. They warn that Miko got pretty hurt and was in the infirmary waiting for treatment. Our hero says he won't visit her, even with classmates insisting. The guys insist a lot, and our hero gives a very evil look, making them very scared. Some delicate kids in this manga. Huh. Guys, for God's sake. The boys say the message was given and leave. Meanwhile, our hero wonders whether or not to visit Miko. His conscience weighs on him, and he goes to the infirmary to visit her. When he arrives, the nurse asks if he came to visit Miko and says he can come in. Our hero arrives quickly and is surprised to see Miko on the other side of the bed. Her shirt was pulled down, and here we have a heavenly view, guys. This manga knows how to make good images. Just this scene with Miko deserves your like. So smash that like and leave a comment so YouTube recommends our video to more people. I'm counting on your help. He blushes a little and asks what happened. Miko says she fought with Alice because she doesn't like how Alice treats him. She basically kept belittling our hero, making him look weak in front of everyone, and he didn't deserve that. That makes him a little embarrassed, and he doesn't really agree with being called a weak man. He even thinks about it. He says Miko is a worthy opponent and doesn't want her to be like the other girls who fight over him. She gets a little embarrassed since she was noticed by him as a worthy opponent. Then she asks, "What do you mean? You don't want me to be like the other girls?" And he answers that he doesn't want her to be like the girls who only want his body. She says he made a very funny face when he said that and that she should have taken a picture of that expression. She was covered in glass shards and wasn't able to remove them properly. Blushing, he offers to make a bandage for her. That makes the girl all goosebumpy, very shy since he would have to touch her skin. She says she doesn't need that, but she's not very good at making bandages. He notices that immediately and understands that if he doesn't help, the wounds could get worse. So he grabs tweezers and says he'll use all his first aid knowledge. The girl stays shy, saying it's not necessary. He kneels and starts removing some shards. She is all embarrassed, groaning in pain. Just from her reaction, you can tell she likes it a lot since she is in love with our hero. The protagonist, we don't really know what he's thinking since he liked Ying. And now he had agreed to be Alice's boyfriend. Actually, it wasn't really boyfriend, he just agreed that she could keep chasing him. Gradually, he removes all the glass shards and makes the bandage on her leg. He says he needs to disinfect the wound first and put on a bandage so she won't get a scar. After a few minutes, he manages to care for her leg, wrapping it with a bandage near it. But she still had a lot of glass shards on her back and lower parts. When he tells her to turn around so he can make the bandage, she gets very embarrassed. "What? You're not going to look at my butt, right? But this is for your own good, silly. This hero of ours hung, guys." The girl trembles, saying she won't take off her clothes. He says she doesn't have to take off any clothes, just lie face down on the mattress. He tries to convince her that this is for her own good, and finally she agrees. She tells him to close his eyes because she's going to take off her coat. He says it's okay. She gets very shy, thinks for a few seconds, and decides not to take off anything, since he is very shameless and would take advantage of her. But he repeats several times not to worry, that he just wants to heal her and has no interest in her body. This makes her very angry. Imagine why, right guys? She wanted him to be interested. Yes? Finally she says it's just a small wound and that it's not worth him going through all that trouble. However, our hero's patience was already at its limit. He tells her to stop acting so delicate and to lie down on the bed.
He even says she looked like a crying baby. After scolding her a bit, he teases her by asking if she's not a strong woman. Because of that, she ends up gaining a bit more courage. She asks him to close his eyes or turn to the other side because she's going to take off her shirt. After that, she says she's done and asks if she can lie down on the bed. Our hero quickly goes to close the curtains. She asks why he did that, and he replies it's so no one outside can look in. She lies down on the bed and says she's ready. He grabs the tweezers to remove the glass shards. The girl's back was really badly hurt, so he even puts on a glove. Slowly he removes the shards, and she notices he is very gentle. That makes her fall even more in love. After a few minutes he finishes the bandage. She even seemed to be sleeping. He talks to her and realizes she really fell asleep. He takes off his uniform and covers the girl so she won't get cold. Then he leaves and goes back home. That Chinese girl appears and calls him Alice's little toy. She asks if he doesn't want her to take him home since it's late and it would be dangerous for a handsome boy like him to be out alone. For those who didn't understand, that was a threat. Guys. Little does she know she's talking to the Emperor. He has the power to just snap his fingers and make the girl disappear. Still he stands there, giving attention to this annoying girl. She says she's going to play cat and mouse with him, and from now on will start chasing him. So he should run as fast as possible. He doesn't pay much attention and keeps walking. She says she'll cut his body into pieces and distribute them to various sects, all in an attempt to scare our hero. But he couldn't care less about her and walks away without giving much attention. She thinks he's dying of fear. And finally she says the hunt will start tonight. So he should get ready. This time Alice won't get away. She says she'll keep her darling. Our hero keeps walking all badass and is already worried about having to reveal his power and eliminate this nasty girl. This scammer was giving our hero a headache because if everyone there found out he was the Emperor and hadn't been imprisoned in the other world, it could complicate his situation with the venerable demon. If she discovered he was just a high school student, it could mess up her plans to save the world. He notices she left a mark on his clothes and stops at a store to change his shirt. He had to make it seem like he didn't notice the mark and got rid of it by chance, since he couldn't leave clues that he was a cultivator. He meets the little fox on the way and tells the little guy to get rid of that outfit as fast as possible and take it far away from his house. He already gets serious, thinking this girl from China will really do something bad to him or to Alice. Back at the school infirmary, Miko wakes up wearing our hero's uniform. She says she fought a lot on battlefields but was never as careless as now, when she let her guard down in front of a high school student. However, she smells our hero on that uniform and gets all infatuated, saying she owes him a favor. She can't stop thinking about Alice's words, wondering what she could offer Luan. As far as she remembers, he liked delicious food and starts thinking about inviting him for dinner. That's what girls did in this world, they invited boys to dinner, and that seemed like a date. Still, she feels motivated to invite him since she was the queen of demons and owed a favor to an ordinary high school teenager. She arrives home with a face all red from embarrassment, unable to find courage to invite Luan out, or rather to dinner. Right, guys? She even thinks about giving up, saying she doesn't have enough courage. She could fight thousands of cultivators, but couldn't ask a boy out. So she has the brilliant idea to use that clone of hers with the appearance of the venerable demon. It was a simple clone, not very powerful, but could do many things she ordered. She orders the clone to invite Luan to dinner with her tomorrow night. The clone asks if she already reserved the restaurant and set the place and time of the date. She hadn't thought of any of that yet, since there was a chance he might refuse the invitation. The clone asks why she doesn't call him herself. The girl says she won't do that since they just had a very intimate moment and she's dying of embarrassment. After giving that explanation, the clone agrees and calls. In a few moments, Luan answers. The clone says she'd like to pay for dinner as a thank you for the bandages he made earlier. Since she was a serious girl, she didn't like owing favors to anyone. So she was inviting him to dinner. The Miko beside her starts yelling at the clone not to speak that way, but our hero had already accepted. She gets all enchanted and in love, since she didn't imagine he would accept on the first try. With that, she even starts jumping for joy. Yeah guys, I think I'm really rooting for Miko. Thinking about how to organize this dinner, she asks the clone for the phone number to take care of everything. She decides to call the frog guy because he was part of the demon sect, and everyone there worshipped the venerable demon. She tells him to organize the best dinner ever, since she had a very important date. The reservation was for tomorrow night at the Jiang restaurant, and he should hire all the best chefs from the demon sect. The boy gets all nervous, seeing this mission as the most important of his life. He even asks if he really should call the best chefs, and Miko says yes. After organizing everything, she sighs with relief. Now she would rehearse etiquette with her clone to impress Luan on the date. The frog guy really calls all the best chefs of the demon clan and explains that the venerable demon is having a dinner tomorrow night. All the best chefs in the world should gather there to cook the most incredible dishes possible. Later, after rehearsing a lot, Miko says she is very tired. She didn't imagine that acting politely in front of others would be so hard to learn. Her clone says she's worrying too much and doesn't need to overdo it. But Miko answers that this is not just any meal. It's a meal with Luan. The next day, during the class break, Alice is eating at a plaza. She says she could have won that basketball game if she hadn't used spiritual energy. She ended up handing over her boyfriend on a silver platter to that snobby girl. She says Miko is very annoying and keeps trying to steal her boyfriend. She receives a call but says she can't answer because she's very busy. However, it was someone from the Phoenix group saying they urgently need to meet. The clan of the Celestial Demons was organizing a very important meeting in that city. All the best cooks of that sect would be gathered there tonight. She already gets nervous, wondering what the hell was going on, and the whole Phoenix group was curious to know what was happening. Grandma, who was the leader, was traveling and wouldn't be in the city. They put Alice in charge of finding out what was going on. She ends the call and says that because of this meeting of the demon clans, she won't be able to spend time with her boyfriend. Little does she know it's exactly a meeting because of Luan. At that moment, she runs into Miko again and wonders why she's not on the rooftop playing with him. She asks the girl where her boyfriend is, and Miko says she doesn't know. In response, Alice says she's letting her have lunch with her boyfriend every day and that she should at least take advantage of it.
In response, Miko says that from that day on she won't play chess with the wand anymore, all to avoid suspicion. Well, that's something you caused yourself. Nobody told you that those who play with fire end up getting burned, Alice says, trying to tease. Well, anyway, Luan promised to have dinner with me tonight. Maybe the one who played with fire and got burned was someone else, not me. In that argument, Miko ended up winning, and Alice even throws her phone on the floor. Later, after school, she gets curious to know what her boyfriend is doing. However, she couldn't be spying, since she needed to find out what the Celestial Demon clan was doing in that city. They were all going to a certain restaurant, and she goes there to check what was happening. She was wearing headphones where the Phoenix group was sending information, even they didn't really know what was going on, and kept telling the girl to check it out. The scene cuts, and we see our hero at the restaurant, with Miko. He was eating the food, really enjoying the flavor, and she didn't stop looking at him. Come on guys, I'm sure you'd like to have a waifu like that. She cuts all the steaks into pieces and hands them to him, saying she already cut everything up. He's impressed, saying he didn't expect her to be so polite. He even comments that if he didn't have to hide his identity, he could take her as a disciple. Yeah guys, I think our hero is starting to like her too, huh? Since he never thought that even about Alice. Miko only thinks if she's managing to impress Luan, if she's giving a good impression of being a polite and sweet girl. The chefs were working hard to make the best dishes possible. Everyone there was commenting that that girl was the venerable demon, and seemed very powerful. Some even said not to look directly into her eyes. Others said she managed to seduce Luan, who is the suitor of the daughter of heaven. If by chance the venerable demon managed to get him, the Phoenix group would be weakened. At that moment, Shayna appears, since she had promised to hunt our hero that night. He gets very pissed, and she starts teasing, calling him a little mouse. Miko's patience was also running out, and she gets furious. Who appears to separate the possible fight is one of the leaders of the demon clan. Looking aside, Shayna is surprised because he was the head of the ghost division. She starts apologizing, saying she won't interfere again. He says if she doesn't leave through that door in 3 seconds, he'll slice her into 18 pieces. With that, she keeps apologizing and swears she won't interfere in his restaurant anymore. He kicks her, throwing her away. The girl was all tough just seconds ago and now was scared shitless. At that moment, Alice also appears, since she was trying to understand what was going on in the demon clan's meeting. Noticing Shayna was there terrified, she asks what the hell was happening. She's mumbling quietly that the main leaders of the demon clan are on the other side of that door. Alice gets curious to know what's going on. The head of the ghost division apologizes to the venerable demon, calling her Miko, and says this won't happen again. However, at that moment, Alice interrupts. Realizing that guy was there, she also gets scared and it's clear he's very powerful. With that, Grandma goes there to check what was happening. Since there was no news from either Shayna or Alice, she was quite afraid it might be a declaration of war. When she arrives, she notices that the restaurant is very unusual, as it was completely empty. When she looks to the side, she sees the girls there, terrified, practically frozen. She starts calling the girls out, saying they are very naive and are embarrassing the cultivators. However, she has no choice. She is going to enter to see what is going on. With that, Grandma ends up transforming into an adult form, which surprises Alice. The venerable demon was being served there by the head chef, and at that moment, Alice appears. That makes Miko very irritated, since she had defeated that girl before, and now she was there bothering and interrupting the meeting. The head of the Ghost Division apologizes to Her Majesty, and goes to confront the leader of the Phoenix group. He says that this girl entered the wrong place and therefore should leave. The little girl is quite bold and says the old man looks like he's having a stroke, since he is making faces. She notices Lawan sitting at that table with the girl, and wonders what the hell he is doing there. She knew it was very strange that he was always involved in cultivation situations, like the time he was with Alice when the demonic sword was discovered, and also during that battle between the Emperor and the Venerable Demon. In other words, guys, there was a good chance he was someone very powerful. She even starts to theorize that he really is the Emperor, since that little mouse even chased him, and the strangest thing is that he always came out unharmed. She takes out of her pocket a piece of her two-part sword that had been refined by the Emperor during that battle against the Venerable Demon. If by any chance the magnetism sucked that fragment to Lawan, it meant he was the Emperor, and when she releases that little piece, it literally dissipates into the air, indicating that Lawan had a very high cultivation power. She had solved the mystery, guys. She discovered that Lawan really was the Emperor. However, he tells her to be quiet and not say anything. If she told right there and then that he was the Emperor, his plan would be ruined, and just the energy he emits makes the girl realize that he really is very powerful. Later, at the Phoenix group base, the girl locks up Alice and says it is because of her bad behavior. The little blonde girl cries, saying she should be released because she wants to find her boyfriend. But the leader tells her to shut up and warns that from now on she will no longer be allowed near Lawan. She also calls out Shaina, saying she embarrassed the entire Phoenix group. Moreover, she will leave the two there to talk and make peace. That shameless girl keeps provoking our little blonde, saying she doesn't deserve to be with Lawan. There, Alice asks if Shaina thinks she deserves Lawan, and she replies she will destroy him. That makes the girl very nervous, but she won't be able to do anything to protect her beloved, since she is confined there at the Phoenix group base. She starts yelling for Shaina to wait a moment and not do anything bad to her beloved. She even grabs her phone and tries to call him so he can protect himself, since Shaina is going there to try to finish him. The phone doesn't work since the signal in that confinement room is very bad. She then tries to call Maiko, who was her ex-friend. The signal actually reaches, but she can't communicate the message very well. Even so, just with a few words, the Venerable Demon already understands that Lawan is in danger. She ends up breaking the phone and says she will protect her beloved. The guy has several girls at his feet, and Maiko gets very pissed, saying she will eliminate that Shaina. That shameless girl really goes to Lawan's house and says she can't wait to meet him. She implies she will do something bad to him, which you can already imagine. However, at that moment, she feels an enormous energy approaching and already starts to run away scared. She thought it was some leader of the Celestial Demon clan since it had a very dark aura. She even starts crying because she knew she couldn't fight any leader. However, to her surprise, the one behind her was precisely the Venerable Demon. That tough girl starts crying like a child and realizes she's screwed. When she stops because she is tired, someone offers her a small bottle of water, and she accepts. But when she notices, she's facing Maiko. Thanks to the energy Maiko was emanating, the girl realizes at once it was the Venerable Demon and even starts to pee her pants. She says she is the only daughter of Master Yang Chanchi and therefore cannot be killed. However, as you can guess, the Venerable Demon doesn't care and starts choking the girl. And without much difficulty, she ends up eliminating Shaina, saying now Master Tianchi will have to have a second child. And so we finished the first season of this work. If you like this work and want to know how this cultivation energy quest ends, leave your like and don't forget to leave a comment to show support. So that's it for today. See you next time, guys.